I'm drawing infinite cards in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376, The Top Field of Technology and Biology. In the outskirts of New York, the basement of an ancient villa. What is that? Villain, concentrate all firepower. We need to retreat immediately, or emergency reinforcements. His speed is too fast, and the guide is difficult to lock. From the armed helicopter communication line of the dispatch team, the voices transmitted back tens of kilometers were in a mess. The vague words of the pilots were full of horror, and there were uncontrollable fierce shouts. They seemed to have encountered the destructive power of a mysterious enemy hit. Tell me clearly, what exactly did you see? Who are you fighting with? Killian's forehead was covered with soybean-like sweat, which dripped down and wet his white shirt. He shouted into the microphone, hoping to get even a little feedback from the enemy, but several contact sources on the opposite side began to fail one after another. Boss, help! After the last scream sounded vaguely, there was only a strange busy tone on the communication channel, and the basement fell into an extremely depressing silence. Killian's face was pale, and he slumped on the chair, staring blankly at the contact desk. He didn't need to think about it, and he knew that most of the underground forces cultivated in the past 20 years had disappeared at that moment. Since Iron Man left the Earth, no one can stop his plan, but he didn't expect a child to be killed out of nowhere, turning the fruits of years of shaping into colorful bubbles that can burst with a poke. After a while, Killian suddenly stood up with a jerk, his hands clenched into fists, his nails completely sinking into his palms, and the pain prompted him to forcibly calm down. I haven't lost yet. I still have hostages who are very important to them. Killian took a deep breath, hurriedly took off his suit jacket, threw it on the ground, and rushed upstairs from the stairs. Assemble everyone, go and bring pots down from the second floor. We are going to evacuate here. Killian ran and shouted in a hurry. Until he reached the stairs on the first floor, he realized that something was wrong, and all the movements of his body stopped suddenly. In the majestic and spacious lobby on the first floor, it was very quiet. Not to mention the bodyguard's response, not even the shadow of half a blonde beauty. Where are people? Where did you go at this moment? Killian murmured blankly. He did not transfer the bodyguards in the villa at the moment. The ones sent to attack Stark Industries were armed forces stationed elsewhere. At this moment, a childish voice sounded in the hall. Oh, you came up on your own initiative? I have been waiting for you here for a long time. Who? Killian was taken aback, his body tense with high vigilance, and he walked forward following the unfamiliar sound source. When he got close to the sofa, he was surprised to find that, not since then, a little blonde boy was lying on the sofa chair. It looks familiar, I seem to have seen you somewhere. When Killian stared at the blonde boy, the boy looked at him with wide eyes, a strange innocent smile on his fair little face. Why, I just asked you to declare war a few days ago, and I forgot it so soon. Caesar curled his lips slightly annoyed, took out a lollipop from his pocket, and immediately tore off the plastic paper and stuffed it into his mouth. Seeing this, Killian finally stared straight at Caesar as if struck by lightning, and blurted out tremblingly, "You are Caesar Carl? This is impossible. Why did you appear here? Why can't I come here?" Caesar asked back. Killian looked gloomy and uncertain, looked at the corridor and yard outside the villa, and asked calmly, "Where's my bodyguard?" Obviously, they were all killed by my people. While Caesar was talking, there were crisp footsteps on the stairs. Killian looked up and saw a classic Iron Man painted in gold and red, walking down the steps of the upstairs stairs, with his mechanical hands still holding the unconscious man. "Miss Potts? Iron Man? Are you still back?" Killian could not help but take a step back as he was facing a formidable enemy, but then, the front door behind him suddenly opened, and there were two identical Iron Men. Some parts of their bodies still had burn marks from the fierce battle with the genetically modified man, walked into the hall with a slightly mechanical blunt movement. 3 Iron Men. Killian was genuinely startled. Caesar explained in a childlike voice, "Don't panic. They are not Tony, but the steel suits manipulated by the artificial intelligence master god." Battle uniform. Killian stared at one of the Iron Men, and the Iron Man's mask suddenly opened, revealing the unmanned empty body, as well as the inner extremely high-tech fine parts and the shining Krypton gold energy core. With candy in his mouth, Caesar continued, "In the past few days, I not only let the Lord God create Skynet and the holographic VR helmet, but also restarted the secret workshop left by Tony, and mass-produced it based on the marka II he made. A group of Iron Men to deal with your biogenetic gang. The next result, needless to say, was already known by Killian. Just now, the top tech battlesuit created by Tony and the ultimate modified creature created by him had a life and death contest outside the villa. Obviously, in the end, his reformers were wiped out. In fact, this is not a fair battle. After all, the battlesuit has no life. As long as there are sufficient materials and energy, it can be mass-produced continuously. In the decisive battle between top technology and top creatures, is Tony Stark slightly better in the end? Killian was lost and talking to himself. His faith suddenly collapsed. His years of hard work were severely hit by reality, and he lost his strength and leaned on the back of the sofa chair. Caesar looked at Killian, and said cheerfully and bluntly, "I'm sorry. Tony's invention of the battlesuit can indeed be regarded as a major field of top technology, and your so-called ultimate biological research is not far from the top field of biology far away." "What did you say?" As if stimulated, Killian looked at Caesar with a distorted face. Everything about him could be trampled or denied, but the ultimate biological research that he had struggled for half his life was his untouchable scale. "I made it very clear." Caesar jumped off the sofa, walked up to Killian step by step, raised his small head and said boringly, "Your ultimate biological research can only be regarded as a failed semi-finished product, not at all top-notch. A mere biogenetically modified person, the body can only produce a high temperature of less than, degrees Celsius, and if it goes up, it will explode. If this can be called the top field of biology, then the Hulk and the Witch Quaian are even surprised. Captain, what is that?" "Damn you!" Killian let out a low growl, suddenly burst into trouble, and rushed towards Caesar fiercely. His body temperature soared rapidly in the air, his whole body skin was red, and the internal organs and muscles could be seen. I didn't see how Caesar dodged, but saw his little feet move, and then Killian, who was covered in lava, flew backwards at a very high speed, smashed through the wall continuously, and fell into the fountain in the courtyard outside. The sizzle of being covered and swallowed by water. Caesar looked at the rising water vapor, shrugged his shoulders and said, "There is one more thing I forgot to tell you. It was not the Iron Man Legion that solved those armed helicopters just now, but myself, with a superhuman body. He is the perfect creation in the top biological field." Chapter 377 3 Years of Wandering in the Starry Sky. The trough crisis of Stark Industry was eliminated after the arrest of the villain behind the scenes, Killian, and the remaining surviving biological genetically modified people. Caesar handed over to S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers to clean up the mess. Thanks to Skynet and holographic VR helmets, the economic and technological development of New York is several times faster than in previous years. It seems to be at the forefront of the trend of the times, and it is gradually shifting from an economic city to a future city, surprising trend at the same time. In front of Stark's office building, Caesar blocked the armed helicopters of terrorists alone in the air. The details of this incident have been recorded by many passers-by and video evidence, which was frequently broadcast on the internet, newspapers, and even on TV. It once aroused people all over the world. Shock and uproar. The child who is less than 1 year old combines the creative talent of Iron Man, the extraordinary strength of the symbol of peace, and the righteous qualities of Captain America. Caesar's limelight completely took off after this war. Some people call him the second generation of heroes. After all, he is a descendant of a symbol of peace. Such achievements can be regarded as worthy of the name of a family of heroes. Some people call him the son of God. After all, Caesar is still very young, but is one of the most powerful superheroes on Earth. It is not too much to say that he is a god. There are more people who prefer another brand new title, Superman, that is to say, mortals who are beyond the scope of human beings. Of course, no matter how heated the public is, even if he is called Superman in the end, Caesar will not pay attention to it. The safe return of Potts has quickly stabilized the morale of the Stark Industries army. The biggest beneficiary is undoubtedly Caesar himself. He once again turned into a hands-off shopkeeper. The main god is responsible for the production of new products, and he officially returned to the sober state after the leisure life, go to the S.H.I.E.L.D. base from time to time, practice fighting skills with Captain America, and master the ever-increasing strength of the body, or go to Stark Industries, point out the research direction of new technology products, and integrate some black technology into the current New York City, Sometimes Eddie will be brought in, and the two will run back and forth between the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere, rescuing large planes that have fallen, annihilating rampant terrorists, and even intervening in natural disasters in a certain area. This is the daily life of the double Caesar. So 2.5 years passed. During this period, the Earth was not invaded by aliens, and everything was carried out in an orderly manner under peaceful conditions. December 2011, 12, Christmas. Today is a brand new day. In the early morning of winter, the golden sun shone in the cool air, and the windowsill on the 21st floor of a residential building overflowed with light. Inside, clothes were scattered and discarded on the floor. Eddie, who was wearing a full set of pajamas, was sleeping soundly on the bed with a bulging quilt in his arms. A black cat was lying lazily beside the bed, also snoring soundly. Boom boom. Suddenly, there was a slight knocking sound outside the window. Eddie, it seems that someone is knocking on the window, under the bed. A woman reminded inarticulately. How is it possible? This is the 21st floor, Eddie muttered in a daze without waking up, even unwilling to open his eyes, turned over and continued to fall into the winter dream. Meow, the black cat woke up unexpectedly. It squinted its eyes, straightened its body and stretched its waist, squatted on the ground and wagged its tail. It looked at the window covered by the curtains, and there was a trace of human enlightenment in its erect animal eyes. Boom boom. The sound of knocking on the window continued slightly, but Eddie in the room was still unmoved. After 3 seconds of silence, the windows were suddenly bombarded. Under the buzzing sound of air pressure, the entire wall collapsed and collapsed, dust billowed, and the sunlight from outside flooded the room without hindrance. Wow, there was an earthquake. Eddie was awakened by the loud noise, jumped up from the bed without any sleepiness, and looked out the window eagerly. There was a blond boy about 5 years old walking into the room from a high altitude on the air, holding a lollipop in his mouth. With his left hand in his trouser pocket, he waved his other hand in greeting. Morning, Eddie. Morning, young master, Eddie replied subconsciously. His gaze blankly glanced at the wall that had been severely damaged by the external force, and then he gritted his teeth as if waking up from a dream. What's the matter? Can I come in through the main entrance next time? Windows and facades. The black cat lightly jumped onto the bed, licking its paws, with a gloating expression. I'm knocking on the window, Caesar replied blankly. Oh, that, Eddie nodded, was dull for half a second, and couldn't help but growl. Knock on the door. You bastard, Caesar pointed to the gap in the wall, and seriously suggested, why don't you open a door on the outer wall next time? Okay. You came to look for me so early, and you want to go there? There won't be any deep-sea monsters to fight, right? Eddie couldn't complain, and stretched out his hand towards the black cat. The black thread liquid, which was the toxin itself, immediately detached from the black cat and melted back into his body. Isn't today Christmas? As he said that, Caesar smiled and said, there is a group dinner for the Avengers at noon. Steve notified me, and asked me to take you there along the way. Banquet? That's about the same. Eddie let out a sigh of relief, changed his clothes, and was about to follow Caesar to the shield base, but when he turned around, he found Caesar standing on the edge of the floor with a damaged outer wall, looking seriously at the distant sky. What happened again? Seeing this, Eddie walked over in surprise, raised his head and was shocked to find that there was a strange light and shadow with colorful changes in the sky over there. Caesar's eyes were complicated. He was silent for a moment, and whispered, there are outsiders descending on the earth. What did you say? Eddie was shocked, and soon felt relieved, clenched his fists tightly. After waiting for so long, is it finally here? Go, let's meet up with the Avengers first. Caesar grabbed Eddie's arm, moved his body, and moved from the room to the top floor of the building in a blink of an eye, and then turned into a stream of light at supersonic speed and rushed into the distance. At this time, there is an unknown number of light years away from the Earth. In a distant and boundless alien universe. Up and down, left and right, there is no end to the distance, and it is dark and lonely, with only a few planets acting as coordinates and flickering faint lights. Call, an Eagle starfighter dragged its blue tail flames and kept jumping light years, as if wandering aimlessly in outer space. Although its speed far exceeded that of any spaceship of Earth technology, it was undoubtedly a star compared to the vast Milky Way galaxy. Turtle crawling. 3 years have passed unknowingly since Kyle and his party set off on Earth and groped their way to the civilization of the Galactic Alliance. The 3-year interstellar journey was not completely in vain, at least during the constant correction and revision of the itinerary. Myths and rumors of terrible natives of the Earth also appeared in the corner of the starry sky. And after repeated confirmations, the Eagle starfighter finally approached the starry sky area where the Galactic Federation is located. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378 Fusion Energy of Light and Fire. Inside the Eagle starfighter. Diddy, in the high-tech capsule lounge, 3 refrigerated dormant chambers are lined up, and only the dormant chamber in the middle is in operation. Estimated sleep time has been reached. Starting to wake up, following the sound of the mechanical notification, the dormant door of the freezing chamber slowly opened, revealing a curvaceous and alluring female body in the white freezing air gushing out. It was a beautiful girl about 23 years old, with a Western-style face and facial features that were exquisite and perfect, with dark green curly hair lazily laid out on the bottom of the cabin. She was wearing a tight-fitting and comfortable spacesuit, and her breathing rate was so low that it was almost zero, as if Sleeping Beauty in a fairy tale on a bed of ice. After the barn door opened for a while, the girl's slender eyelashes trembled slightly, her delicate eyebrows frowned slightly, and her consciousness gradually surfaced from her long sleep. She opened her beautiful eyes that were as bright as gemstones, and after blinking blankly, she instinctively straightened her upper body and sat up. When her vision reflected the familiar interior scene of the starfighter lounge, the corresponding thoughts in her brain returned to the embrace of reality. "Did you sleep well, Lorna?" It was still the previous system prompt, but it seemed that the intelligent program had been replaced and turned into a humanized joke. Weiss. Lorna clutched her forehead, still feeling a little uncomfortable when she first woke up. She stepped on the floor with her bare feet. She left the dormant cabin and approached the floor-to-ceiling transparent window of the lounge, showing a stretched waist with a bumpy figure. How long did you sleep this time?" "Boss, and Tony," Weiss replied, 360 days and 7 hours of sleep, almost a year. Tony and Jarvis are in the studio for a long time, and the boss is in the cockpit, so long. Lorna was taken aback. She thought she had only slept for a month or two, but she didn't expect that a year had passed. Long, is there? Weiss didn't think so. After all, artificial intelligence creatures have had almost endless time since they were created and gave birth to consciousness. And Kyle, who has already become a god, also has no feeling for things like time. "I wouldn't have slept you if I had known." Lorna felt a little annoyed. This was the opportunity Yutong had won. Let her go out with the boss. If most of this interstellar journey was wasted in sleep, who should cry? "I've already notified the boss, and the boss told you to go to the main cockpit." Weiss didn't know what Lorna was thinking, and acted as a mouthpiece. "Boss is looking for me? Then I'll go there right away," Lorna blurted out, just took a few steps outside, then stopped suddenly, looked down at her body, turned around and waved her hands and said, "Wait for me, I'll take a shower first." Although it has been in the dormant cabin, not to mention the obvious dirt, even bacterial dust is not contaminated, but as a woman, it is still difficult to accept the thought of not taking a bath for a year. After half an hour, Lorna was wearing a slightly loose fiber dress, wiping her dark green curly hair with a towel, and a few strands of hair were either shawls or draped over her collarbone, exuding a mature and seductive female allure. Unlock it with palm fingerprints, and manipulate to open the door of the main cab. As soon as Lorna stepped into the main cockpit, a strong hot wind rushed to her face. The heat wave was rolling, and her dark green hair, which was originally wet, was completely dried in an instant. "This is how the same thing." Lorna opened her eyes wide in surprise. In the spacious main cockpit, a silver-haired Kyle was standing and suspended in midair. His fists and feet condensed indescribable light and heat energy, overflowing circles of scorching bright light ripples, spreading in the air, so that the indoor temperature is always kept above, degrees Celsius. As if hearing Lorna's exclamation, Kyle's eyes suddenly opened, and the bright light in the eyes flashed past, and then the unspeakable strange energy on his body began to quiet down, and the light in the room gradually returned to normal and comfortable state. Kyle fell back to the floor, sighed tiredly, and waved to Lorna at the door. Lorna immediately went up to meet him, her hands naturally embraced one of his arms, and while the aurora was lingering, she helped him to the seat beside him without asking any questions. "Boss, drink some water." Lorna stretched out her hand and mastered the magnetic field skillfully, and a metal thermos cup flew over from the bridge immediately. Kyle took the thermos cup, unscrewed the cap, and gulped down half a bottle of water. Only then did Kyle show a relieved expression on his handsome face. "Boss, what happened just now?" Lorna looked at Kyle worriedly. She had seen the divine power of the fire department many times, but it was by no means the frightening scene of the raging energy just now. Also, it's intriguing to tire the godly Kyle. "You mean this?" Kyle smiled faintly, and snapped his fingers in front of Lorna's eyes with his right hand, and a bright stream of energy quickly shot up between his two fingers, which was fleeting. Facing the materialization of that energy at close range, Lorna's hair stood on end, and she truly felt a very destructive power from it. "Actually, I don't know what's going on. The chair is only for one person." Kyle shrugged casually, hugged Lorna's soft body into his arms, let her sit on his lap, and gently smelled the delicious fragrance of the dark green hair. "Think deeply about the current state of your body. For him who is pursuing evolution and strength, this is naturally not caused by the domination of the lower body's lust, but he just did it without any worries because he felt that this position was comfortable." Lorna, a normally proud and glamorous punk girl, was lying in Kyle's arms, squinting her eyes like a well-behaved kitten. Kyle didn't think too much, and continued, "Half a year ago, I practiced with Tony, who had improved his new suit, and used his body to catch his strengthened palm light cannon. A brand new energy. As long as it is fused with a fire power, it will become the strange energy just now. It was like a box that was originally closed, but suddenly there was a key that opened it inexplicably inside the body. No wonder. The energy released from your body just now, in addition to the scorching fire attribute before, is also mixed with a more powerful light attribute." Lorna nodded thoughtfully, and asked Kyle worriedly, "Won't this change harm your body?" "It won't." Kyle shook his head and said, "I can feel that the potential of this fused energy is far stronger than that of the previous single fire-type divine power. But it consumes too much physical and mental energy. Although it took half a year to control it, I still can't control it now. Do it perfectly." The fire-type divine power fused with a mysterious energy is indeed stronger and more destructive in nature, and the additional body muscle is added, but it is also because it is so powerful that destruction is often only in one thought, and it is difficult to adjust the precise release application. If he can perfectly control this fusion energy, Kyle can even cross the starry sky by himself. This is not an illusion or guesswork, but a judgment made by Weiss, Jarvis, and Tony after testing. Chapter 379: The Pursuit of the Unidentified Spaceship. After Kyle finished talking about his physical condition, he took Lorna, and the two went to the studio inside the Star Wars. The so-called studio is actually a storage room specially transformed by Tony. All the equipment configurations are of the highest technological level on the Earth. Since the establishment of this place, Kyle and Lorna have basically never set foot here. This is a special area for making madmen. Eating, drinking, playing and sleeping are almost all done here. It can be said that Lorna spent the most time in sleep, Tony spent the most time in research, and Kyle practiced a subtle fusion of fire power and mysterious light energy during this interstellar wandering journey. Wissy followed the cable all the way, and before Kyle could unlock it, the protective door of the studio opened slowly and automatically. Kyle and Lorna entered the room one after the other, and they could see various parts of the suit scattered on the floor. Tony, wearing protective glasses, was lying in front of the computer, constantly checking and adjusting the parameters with Jarvis. Hearing the sound of the warehouse door opening, Tony turned his head. When he saw the two of them, his body focused on work relaxed. He looked at Lorna meaningfully, and teased with a slightly raised corner of his mouth, "Lorna, this sleep is too long. I haven't seen you for a year, Uncle Tony. You have changed a lot." Lorna held Kyle's arm and stuck out her little tongue at Tony. Kyle smiled. In fact, Tony has the life card he bestowed, and the infinite formula medicine to delay cell death. The degree of aging is definitely not higher than before leaving the Earth. It is a pity that he has been slovenly for several years. Nestled in this studio, his ruined curls and beard make him look even more aged. Tony didn't mind either, and said with a confident smile, "For a top engineer, what you see should be his research results, not his appearance. Besides, you are the only little woman on this starfighter. It takes a lot of effort to dress up. The boss is different," Lorna muttered, looked down at the parts on the ground, and asked curiously, "Then what are your research results this year, Tony?" "I'm a little curious too." Kyle nodded in agreement. Tony said before that there was a new breakthrough in Mark's suit, and he hasn't fully seen it yet. Now, at your feet is the brand new Mark VI. Tony proudly stretched out his hand and pointed to the armor parts of the battle suit on the ground. He wore a new smart bracelet on his wrist, which was clearly inseparable from Jarvis and the suit. Mark 7? Kyle's heart moved slightly. Before that, Tony had only used the Mark IV in combat. He didn't expect to jump 3 steps after 3 years in the studio. It's a pile of scrap metal, isn't it? Lorna blinked her eyes in disbelief. Then show it to me. Tony patted the slim war clothes, raised his left hand wearing the smart bracelet, hooked 2 fingers towards the parts on the ground, and shouted in a full voice, "Battle suit, come." Kyle looked at the armor parts on the ground, but there was no response, and the studio fell into an awkward silence. After a long time, Lorna covered her mouth and laughed. Tony held his breath with flushed cheeks, stared straight at the parts on the ground, and urged, "Come on, please give me a success." Under his expectant gaze, the steel mask in it finally floated lightly. "Look, it's almost successful," Tony murmured excitedly. Before he finished speaking, the steel mask suddenly accelerated and landed on Lorna's palm. Abominable magnetic field control. Seeing this, Tony almost didn't recite it in one breath. "Okay. Lorna, stop teasing Tony, and Weiss, you are also secretly influencing Jarvis." Kyle seemed to see through everything, and said calmly towards the computer screen. "I still can't hide it from you, Master." A grimace appeared on the display screen, and Weiss chuckled, pressing Jarvis in the friction of philosophy. Kyle is a little speechless, carrying an artificial intelligence, which can standardize daily portability, but if 2 artificial intelligences are in the same room, it is like raising 2 who can only play tricks, and the efficiency will be greatly reduced. "I won't affect Jarvis and the suit program anymore. Tony, go ahead." Hearing Weiss's words, Tony took a deep breath, and hooked his fingers towards the armor parts on the ground again. In the next moment, it was disassembled into more than a dozen mechanical parts, all of which were suspended, and accelerated towards Tony in the center of the studio. Go. Kang Kwang. The mechanical parts correspond to the body parts they wear, and cover Tony's body autonomously. Within 2 seconds, they fit into the general outline of Iron Man. At the end, the mask in Lorna's hand flew away, covering her mature and vicissitudes of face. The distinct Iron Man stood completely on the ground, his chest, eye sockets, and engines everywhere flash blue arcs with abundant energy. How about it? I have added new functions such as melee assistance, remote positioning assembly, short-term oxygen supply operations in water or outer space, and red-cutting laser rays. Tony stretched his body, and the armor suit fit the body surface, without the slightest stagnation of normal movement. "Do you want to try it with me?" Lorna's eyes brightened slightly, eager to try, and Kyle also had the urge to fight with gestures. "Farewell." Tony tugged at the corners of his mouth, and instantly became depressed. Before he finds a suit material that replaces metal, he will definitely not fight Lorna. As for the Godfather Kyle, after he experienced a baptism of fusion energy, the feeling of melting the suit and leaving the rest of his life is also not wanted. Try again. At this moment, the fighter plane swayed without warning, and then Weiss and Jarvis' alarm words sounded. "Everyone." 3 unidentified spaceships appeared in the rear, approaching our starfighter. "There is an unknown communication wave, requesting to connect with us. Is it approved?" Unidentified spaceship. Kyle and the others looked at each other in blank dismay. For 3 years of wandering, they encountered many black holes, meteorites, and wild civilizations, but they never encountered interstellar spacecraft of other advanced civilizations. Tony looked at Kyle, and couldn't hide his excitement. "Godfather, could it be that we have finally entered the territory of the Galactic Federation? Go to the main cab first, and then talk about the situation." Kyle narrowed his eyes. Main cab. When the 3 of Kyle came here, they could directly see the live situation behind the rear of the fighter plane on the display screen, really about a few kilometers away, led by a medium-sized spaceship, supplemented by 2 small spaceships, forming a team of interstellar ships in hot pursuit. "Jarvis. The other party is still requesting to connect with us. Do you agree?" Kyle pondered for a moment, but he was also a bold artist, and nodded directly. "I agree to connect." Tony and Lorna held their breath, and a few seconds later, the communicator sent out inexplicable words. "This is the dialect of the Galactic Federation." Kyle opened his eyes wide. A long time ago, he accidentally drew the ability card of the Galactic Alliance in a continuous draw, and it finally came into play at this time. Chapter 380 Welcome to the Galactic Federation. Galactic Federation? What did they say? Tony hadn't taken off the new type of armor yet. His special alloy eye sockets shone brightly, and he looked at Kyle in amazement. He didn't expect that the Godfather, who is almost omniscient and omnipotent on Earth, would actually master the lingua franca of civilization in this region of the universe, in this outer space, which is light years away from Earth. Lorna was very interested, and was also waiting for Kyle's answer. Kyle looked at the Star Wars fleet on the screen, compared the combat power of the two sides a little bit, and pondered. It is said that the space control within 10 light years nearby requires our illegally intruding spaceship to stop immediately and undergo inspection, otherwise it will be destroyed. Unleash heavy artillery strikes. Space control. Tony shook his head and snorted snortingly. It can't be a robber, right? He planted this tree and opened this road. If you want to pass here, you must leave something or something. This is outer space. There are no trees or roads. Lorna rolled her eyes, but she also understood the meaning of Tony's metaphor. Planting trees, opening roads, and even space control may all be just excuses. The purpose is to make them stop the starfighter obediently. Kyle naturally thought of this long ago, and without thinking too much, he gave an order to Weesey, who controlled the program of the fighter plane. Weesey, stop the fighter plane. Hearing this, Tony and Lorna were startled, but neither of them was stupid, and they understood his intention and thought of making the judgment without waiting for Kildoga to explain. After wandering for 3 years, I finally encountered a spaceship of high-tech civilization. Whether it is a real robber or a fake robber, it is precious information delivered to my door. The tail engine of the Eagle fighter was turned off, and the speed continued to decrease, leaving only the small engine to maintain balance, and soon it was suspended in the vast and boundless outer space. Unexpectedly, the interstellar battleship team sped up slightly, and the two small spaceships about 3 times larger than the Eagle fighter jets directly passed the Eagle fighter jets, one to the left and the other to the right, and stopped on both sides of the front to block the way. The leading interstellar spacecraft finally arrived slowly. When viewed on the display screen, due to the viewing angle, it was only the size of a fist, but it was close to the rear of the Eagle fighter. It was more than 20 times the size of the Eagle fighter. Compared with it, the ascending aircraft carrier is nothing compared to it. The interstellar spaceship hovered in outer space, like a pitch-black steel fortress, completely blocking a gorgeous and mysterious starry sky scene, and covering the small Eagle fighter plane with boundless shadows. At this time, the underside of the starship suddenly sags, forming an entrance similar to a mouth, and a green light curtain radiates from the inside, which lands on the Eagle fighter plane for a moment, and then there is an attractive force pulling the fighter plane into it. This picture is very similar to the big fish eating the small fish. After passing through the long passage, the Eagle fighter finally landed in the parking area inside the starship. The deck of the fighter plane opened downwards. Kyle led Lorna, followed closely by Tony in a battlesuit. And the three walked off the fighter plane very calmly. Swish, swish, swish. The proficient one seemed to have practiced countless times. There are about 30 alien guards who have been waiting beside the fighter plane, all wearing slightly bloated white spacesuits, and they all raised their laser guns at the three of Kyle. Kyle was expressionless, looked around indifferently, and said lightly, "Is this how you treat guests? Ha ha ha, put down your weapon first." Among the guards, one guard took a few steps forward, took off his tactical helmet, revealed a green-skinned ugly face, grinned and said, "Outsider, I am the captain of the spaceship's guard, Lu Feng. I don't know how many of you." He obviously used some kind of translation device, and even Lorna and Tony understood what he was saying. Green Peak's gloomy gaze swept over Kyle and Lorna, who were not wearing weapons, and carefully landed on Tony, who was in full armor. Kyle didn't answer, but asked instead, "Are you the captain of this interstellar spaceship?" Lu Feng froze for a moment, then shook his head slightly. "Then take us to see the captain." "I don't want to talk to the thugs." Kyle glanced at Lu Feng. His eyes were full of contempt and arrogance, as if he was arrogant and defiant. Lu Feng seemed to be used to it, and he was not angry. He stretched out his hand cheerfully. "Please go this way. The captain is waiting for you in the reception room." Kyle didn't respond, and pulled Lorna forward, with Tony following behind as a bodyguard. Lu Feng walked behind with his head down. He looked obscenely at the graceful back of Lorna in Kyle's arms, licked his lips hotly, and then looked at Tony in armor and battlesuit, showing cold murderous intent without concealment. Outsiders like Kyle from remote areas of the Milky Way, relying on the local technological level to create spaceships to barely reach the Galactic Federation, have seen a lot of green peaks, but it is a pity that they often have only one end in the end when encountering their interstellar warships. The corridor is guarded by armed alien guards every 10 meters, and Green Peak leads Kyle and others to the entrance of the reception room without hindrance. Just as he was about to enter the reception room, Tony was suddenly stopped by the guards at the door. "I'm sorry, this spaceship has a regulation that bodyguards with weapons are not allowed to enter the reception room." Lu Feng smiled and apologized, but there was no trace of apology on his face. When Tony heard it, his temper almost came up. Kyle patted him on the shoulder comfortingly and ordered, "Tony, you stay outside the door." Now that the Godfather has spoken, Tony can only agree, and Lu Feng stopped outside the door with a cold snort. Kyle and Lorna stepped into the room. In the bright and spacious reception room, there were several rows of round tables and chairs in the middle, and there were also many armed guards standing beside them. After the door was closed, a round wheelchair on the innermost side suddenly turned, degrees, and a tall alien with red hair was sitting on it, facing Kyle and the two, spreading his hands and saying, "Welcome to the Galactic Federation. I am the captain of this starship, Rainer." Renault waited for Kyle to sit down on the chair, and continued to say politely, "Guests from afar, please come here. I have no malice at all. I just want to make friends. Can you show your identities now? My name is Kyle. And next to me is my wife, Lorna, and my bodyguard and butler's intelligent robot, Tony." Kyle introduced separately that Lorna's exquisite cheeks were slightly rosy, and she was snuggling intimately in his arms, acting like the best actor in a full set. Fortunately, the divine power of fire and the energy of light are fused, which can suppress the aurora phenomenon caused by the control of magnetic field. "By the way, we are human beings, from the Earth," Kyle said here, staring at Renault, wanting to see his reaction. "Earth? Human?" Renault was slightly stunned. Kyle's eyes flashed, and he pretended to be curious. "Does the captain know where the Earth is? Or is there a human being who knows?" Renault waved his hand, asked the guard to bring up the drink, and smiled at Kyle. "No. It's just that I had a friend who had been to Earth and said that it was a planet with poor resources and low civilization. Said that the indigenous humans would not be able to leave the solar system and reach our Galactic Alliance civilization within 100 years. But now it seems that he is obviously wrong, so that's how it is." Kyle suddenly realized, but he kept a watchful eye in his heart. What Renault said in front of him didn't know whether it was true or not. But he is the same. Both of them are testing each other. Chapter 381 Star Hunter, Jedi Trap? The hospitality room of the starship. "Captain, there are 2 foreign guests. Here are drinks." The beautiful maid with horns on her head approached the seat with catwalks, lowered her body slightly in a regular manner, revealing a piece of white flowers in her low bodice, and filled 3 cups with a bubbling sweet yellow drink offer. "Ha, good." Captain Leo laughed generously, and immediately picked up one of the drinks at random, and greeted Kyle and Lorna, who were sitting opposite. "2 guests from the distant Earth? This is a very famous drink in the Galaxy Alliance, with a spicy and indescribably refreshing feeling. Isn't that just wine?" Lorna complained sullenly in her heart, so she reached out to pick up a cup, thinking about trying the taste, but before she could even get close to her lips, she was stopped by Kyle next to her. "Mr. Kyle." Leo frowned slightly, as if slightly displeased. Kyle didn't speak. He raised his glass, looked up at the rising bubbles, lowered his head and whispered to Lorna in his arms, "Lorna, pay attention to me. Don't forget that you are pregnant now. You can't drink this stimulating drink." Lorna's cheeks were slightly red, and she retracted her neck very quickly, buried her face docilely on Kyle's neck, and muttered, "If you don't drink, don't drink." It turns out that Madame is pregnant. Seeing this, Leo cheerfully waved his hands out, and the maid with 2 horns could only leave with a glass of drink. "Yes. I won't give her the drink. Let me have a drink with the captain." Kyle shook the liquid very well, and raised his glass to signal to Leo. Leo was naturally very happy, and also raised his glass to touch it lightly. Ding! The 2 raised their heads and drank the drink in the cup in one gulp. Kyle only felt that what he drank into his mouth was similar to the mixture of spirits and soda on the Earth, like a scorching airflow from his throat straight into his stomach. Happy, very good. After Kyle finished drinking the drink in the cup, Leo squinted his eyes, and the joy on his face was even more joyful. He immediately patted his chest and promised, "Mr. Kyle, anyway, I am also the Galaxy Federation has been in the galaxy for decades. You are new here. There must be many things you are not familiar with. If you have any needs or doubts, I will do my best to help solve them. That would be wonderful. Kyle's eyes lit up, and he asked a question that he didn't understand. Captain, how do you know that we are outsiders? Just by looking at the model of the starfighter you are driving. Leo laughed dumbfounded, shook his head and said, of course not. There are so many planetary civilizations in the Galactic Federation, and countless of them can reach the technological level of making outer space navigation spacecraft. There are thousands of models of starfighters, not to mention tens of thousands. How can it be so easy? The origin of the driver can be identified by the model of the fighter. Kyle nodded, waiting for his further answer. Let's put it this way. Ordinary planetary civilizations are basically self-sufficient, and rarely wander outside in spaceships. After all, there are too many unknown and known dangers lurking in the vast and boundless outer space. Leo held up 3 fingers, and said slowly, the spaceships that go out all have clear signs of power, and there are only 3 types of people who will often drive the spaceships outside. The first type is those who are protected by the Nova Empire Legion. The Nova is the Milky Way, one of the most prosperous economic planets in the Alliance. Many people who are looking for business, trade and item procurement will choose to go to Nova. The second category is the people of the Carry Star Legion. Great War. Having said that, he stopped suddenly. Captain, who is this third category? Kyle asked curiously. Leo smiled and said, the third category is interstellar hunters. They do not belong to any civilization forces, they only travel in outer space for money and resources. On many civilized planets, there is a profession called intermediary. From the intermediary, the interstellar hunter can receive the reward task issued by the civilized planet, or hunt the creature with a reward order, or find a rare item, etc. Kyle's heart moved, and he asked eagerly, intermediary, do they have a wide network? Leo replied very firmly, of course. The apostle belongs to the gray area between black and white. As a middleman, he has contacts with all major civilization forces in the Galactic Federation. It can be said that if there is any disturbance in the Galactic Federation, the intermediary the person is definitely the second existence to know. Kyle and Lorna looked at each other. If they found an intermediary, they might not be able to find the whereabouts of Howard and his party. Kyle didn't think too much, and said directly to Leo, Captain, I want to discuss a business with you. Oh, what business? Leo suddenly became interested and rubbed his palms habitually. Take us to a civilized planet with a mediator. As Kyle spoke, he took out a krypton gold that shone bright blue from his pocket, and said calmly, I will use this energy core as a reward. As soon as Leo saw krypton gold, he stood up immediately, excited and surprised. This is the energy crystal nucleus? The inner energy is too pure, and it actually reveals such a gorgeous texture. How? This should be a very simple matter for you. Kyle did not hesitate, and directly put the krypton gold on Leo's palm. Leo held the krypton gold tightly in both hands, looked at it carefully, greed flashed across his eyes, and soon he kept the krypton gold in his palm. His face sank like water and restrained his joy. As soon as he waved his hand, the surrounding armed guards immediately rushed up with weapons, enclosing the chair area where Kyle and Lorna were located airtight. Kyle was not surprised by this. Instead, he seemed to be expecting it, and sighed slightly. Is it still going to be like this? When Leo talked about the 3 types of people active in outer space, it basically showed the identity of people like Leo, that is, the third type that does not belong to any civilization forces star hunters. To put it bluntly, it can be called interstellar bandit. Leo no longer concealed his true face, and the previous gentleness was swept away, replaced by greed and murderous intent. You already knew? Then you still obediently send the energy core to me, alien idiot. The boss wants to give you a chance, Lorna said suddenly, looking at Leo with pity and disgust in her eyes. Give me a chance? What chance can you give me, mere Earth natives? Leo sneered again and again. From the moment you enter this spaceship, all property belongs to us. Do you still count on that Iron Man outside the door? Can the bodyguard rush in to save you? I guess by now. Lu Feng has already torn its body parts to pieces. Are you finished? Kyle looked at him coldly, just stood up, but staggered, and almost sat back unsteadily, but luckily Lorna reached out to support him in time. Boss, what's the matter? Is there something wrong with that glass of drink? Lorna's face changed slightly, and she looked at the empty glass with a few drops of sweet yellow liquid left on the table. The answer is correct, but unfortunately there is no reward. In that cup of drink, I put a large enough dose of nerve paralysis venom. Even if it is a god, it will not be able to move even if the effect takes effect. Holding Krypton gold in his hand, Leo looked at the two of Kyle as if they were prey caught in a trap, and said with a smirk, "Don't worry, I won't kill you. I will sell you to others as human slaves, and I will do the same for intermediaries I went to visit for you. This is the first lesson I taught you outsiders. No matter where you go, the strong will eat the strong, and the strong will respect you." Chapter 382 Hurrah Bahoo? Lorna supported the shaky Kyle, looked at Captain Leo with his ugly face, and the alien guard surrounded by laser guns, and couldn't help but spurn in disgust. I thought the Galactic Federation was something high-ranking. Unexpectedly, the area of technological civilization is 100 times darker and dirtier than the underground world of our Earth. This human lady, what do you know? Leo smiled, looked down at the Krypton gold in his hand, obsession and fanaticism appeared in his eyes, and said with a smile, "No matter what alien race, the ultimate pursuit of technological civilization is to develop to the end. Resources. Resources are the needs of life. For resources, some races even prefer to give up their hometowns and step into the outer space full of dangers of death. There are even more life races that can launch a sweeping wave of more than a dozen light for a resource-rich planet. Year-wide interstellar war, the Galactic Federation is indeed the largest and most prosperous civilization star system, but because of this, our demand for resources has reached an exaggerated height." Leo put away the Krypton gold, without any sense of guilt, and said as a matter of course, "And we are still interstellar hunters, and it is normal to plunder resources in outer space. Behind the scenes of piled-up majestic civilizations, there is extremely bloody and bottomless darkness. This is the status quo of the Galaxy Alliance. The closer it is to the end of civilization, the more the rules will be biased towards the ancient primitive era." Lorna was silent for a while, completely shattered or longing for the peaceful coexistence of the Galactic Alliance, the advanced technological civilization and alien races that she had expected. The end of development and evolution is no longer beauty and peace, but a serious lack of resources. This is really ridiculous. Kyle shook his head and said to himself. A name suddenly flashed in his mind. Thanos. Okay, I've talked enough with you, guard, arrest them both. Leo waved his hand, and several alien guards immediately stepped forward, took out an instrument similar to the evolved version of shackles, and were about to arrest them both. Kyle, who was paralyzed and poisoned, and Lorna, a weak woman, were restrained. Boom, boom boom boom. At this moment, outside the reception room, through the thick steel plate protective door, dense and powerful explosion sounds faintly came in. Even the floor of the starship began to vibrate. Is this the same thing? Leo's face changed slightly, and there was obviously a firefight outside the door. Kyle laughed instead, and said, Captain, you don't think that my Iron Man bodyguard can be dealt with so easily by your subordinates, do you? Lorna also laughed. These pretentious aliens knew nothing about the strength of the Iron Man suit made by Tony, a genius engineer recognized by the Earth. You outsiders, damn it. No need for prisoners, shoot them directly. Leo quickly took a few steps back and ordered sharply. More than, alien guards raised their laser guns, and after quickly aiming and pulling the trigger, the laser beams of scorching daylight formed a dazzling and terrifying light rain, which shot densely from all directions and covered Kyle and the two. It came just fine. Kyle suddenly pulled Lorna's arm and let her fall into his arms. He didn't have any trace of paralysis and poisoning before, and his fists were tightly clenched and his outer sides were stretched. Call, as if the engine switch somewhere in the body was ignited. In an instant, a brilliant red and white energy gushed out through the body, using Kyle's arm and fist as a breakthrough, and the speed of light flowed into a semicircular arc of the energy cover shape, covering itself and Lorna's body. The white laser rain curtain fell on the energy shield, and there was no tendency to break it, but it melted and shattered in an unimaginable way. How can that be? Leo's eyes widened in horror. It was really hard to understand how the native humans did it. The alien guards kept attacking. Wave after wave of laser beams continuously bombarded the exterior of the energy shield. Kyle held his breath and his fists trembled slightly. When he realized that the fusion energy was still unstable and he couldn't control the defensive energy shield for too long, he simply let go of the energy condensing fist and actively detonated the overflowing fusion energy. Boom! The energy shield collapsed immediately, turning into a turbulent wave of light, beating violently to the surroundings. Leo turned around and ran away, but after taking a few steps, He felt hit by a light shuttle on his back, and he did a somersault hard, and flew backwards like the other alien guards around him without any suspense. A group of aliens crashed into the inner wall of the spaceship one after another, and the guns scattered all over the place. This scene was quite spectacular and inexplicably joyful. Kyle lowered his hands, and the violent fusion energy was still flowing colorfully on his body, making him look like a Krypton player with countless amplification buffs superimposed in the game. "Boss, you are too fierce." Lorna was still lying on Kyle's chest, her heartbeat accelerated violently, her beautiful eyes were full of confusion, and her lips were slightly parted, saying bad words that could be easily misunderstood. The actual combat effect of the fusion energy also exceeded Kyle's expectations. He glanced at the alien guards who were howling on the ground, and the fusion energy obviously hurt their insides through the protective clothing. Kyle finally understood at this moment why Tony didn't want to practice against him anymore. "What are you doing lying down? Keep fighting." Leo struggled to get up from the corner of the wall, wiped away the green blood from the corner of his mouth, and pulled out a black handle from his waist. After pressing the button, a buzzing sound appeared, a rattling sword-shaped beam of light. After hearing this, many alien guards stood up supporting each other, or picked up laser guns, or took out lightsabers, and faced Kyle and Lorna in full battle. The vitality is quite tenacious. Kyle squinted his eyes slightly, and he might have to lie on the bed for a month or two because of the human being. Kyle thought for a while, then suddenly pulled out a bio card and patted Lorna on the back. "Venom, protect Lorna from me." Yes, the venom broke away from the card form and returned to the original body of the black line liquid. Gululu stuck to Lorna's back, and quickly covered the limbs and head, forming a dark and tough cuticle. "I'm not that weak." Lorna curled her lips, and knew that Kyle was thinking of her. After all, no matter how powerful her mutant ability is, the fragile human body is also a major weakness. If she gets hit by a laser beam, she may die on the spot. But after a while, Lorna turned into a tall and slender dark humanoid monster, in stark contrast to Kyle, who had a dazzling aura of fusion energy, and both of them exuded a dangerous and exaggerated horror atmosphere. Kyle and Lorna set off, each turning into two beams of light, one color and one black, rushing swiftly and violently towards the group of alien guards with terrified expressions, like a scene of wolves entering a herd of sheep. Leo walked with his back against the wall, watching the one-sided battle situation, and frantically turned on the holographic communicator on his wrist. "Green front, quickly bring the guards to the reception room for support." The communication was quickly connected, and the pale face of Lu Feng was shown on the display screen. He was being chased by the golden and red flying Iron Man, and while dodging the laser bombardment in embarrassment, he screamed at Leo, "Captain, I also need support here." Chapter 383 Humans are Essence of Demons. In the vast and boundless black outer space, the interstellar spaceship was traveling at high speed, as if it was returning to a certain planet, and two relatively light and flexible small interstellar fighters leaned on the sides of the spaceship, one left and one right, for escort. Suddenly, the interstellar spacecraft trembled slightly, and the huge drive engine went out, and it hovered near a broken star belt without power. The alien pilots of the two interstellar fighters were astonished. Since they did not receive the diversion message in advance, they could only stop the fighters hastily at this moment, and operated the communication system to get in touch with the interstellar spacecraft. They were surprised by the stop of the interstellar spacecraft. After all, they had followed Leo for decades and knew the captain's style and habits very well. Interstellar hunters are all life-killing lunatics who walk on the edge of a knife. The most fearful thing is to kick the iron plate and miss. Leo is cautious and organizes interstellar bandits to wander in the outer space universe. Or if the spaceship team is strong, they will directly choose to take a detour to avoid, and only pick those spaceships and fighters that are alone to hunt. Once the hunt is successful, the interstellar spacecraft will immediately stop committing crimes, hide in some remote planets, and go out after a while to choose other targets to attack. Leo can be said to be a typical representative of bullying the weak and fearing the strong, but the power of the interstellar bandit group he possesses is more than enough in the Galactic Federation. Choosing this kind of method has allowed him to never miss in the past few decades. Could it be that their group of old and experienced hunters and robbers finally failed today? Before the alien pilot could figure it out, he saw the interstellar spacecraft suddenly activate its laser cannons, aiming the muzzles of the Yao guns at the interstellar fighters they were on. No, with a sound of desperate screams, the laser cannon blasted out several beams of laser beams across the space, ruthlessly piercing through the escorting starfighters, and the starfighters exploded into fireballs, gradually flying in the vast universe of outer space disintegrated to death. None of them could understand what happened to the starship. At this time, inside the interstellar spacecraft, the smooth passageway made of metal was in a mess, as if it had been brutally baptized in battle. At a glance, the corpses of alien guards are scattered all over the place. Their heads were violently twisted, or their bodies were fatally injured by lasers, or most of their bodies were ablated by some kind of energy. Burn marks from laser bombardment. In front of the main cab. This is the final area where the battle is coming to an end. In front of the door, there are piles of corpses of alien guards high up on the hill. Green blood is flowing all over the ground, exuding a disgusting stench. Indoor, Kyle sat calmly on the captain's seat. His spacesuit and boots were spotless. If it wasn't for a little sweat on his forehead, he wouldn't look like he had just experienced a fierce battle at all. Diddy, Tony, who took off his mask, operated the pilot console of the starship with the assistance of Weiss and Jarvis, and after confirming the annihilation of the fighter, he turned around and said, "Godfather, the 2 starfighters outside have been dealt with." "Very good," Kyle nodded, neither happy nor sad on his face. The Captain Leo and the guard Captain Lu Feng knelt on the ground covered in bruises. Their wrists were locked by a twisted steel pipe. After hearing Tony's words, they showed even more desperate expressions. At this time, a black shadow flashed by the door, and as the venom-covered cuticle faded away, Lorna's beautiful and graceful body was revealed. She clapped her hands and walked towards Kyle as if asking for credit. "Boss, everything has been cleaned up already. Compared with mutant abilities, hand-to-hand combat is more enjoyable. You're wasting your natural ability." Kyle rolled his eyes. "It's fine if it's another mutant ability, but it's the magnetic field control that is equivalent to the skill of heaven." Although Lorna's body is still a major weakness, as long as she has a perfect grasp of the magnetic field, let alone a hail of bullets, intercontinental missiles and even atomic bombs can't do anything to her. The control of the magnetic field can almost restrain all creations of technological civilization. "Okay, of course I will practice digging well." Lorna stuck out her tongue. In front of Kyle, she was like an ordinary little girl. 2 aliens in front. Tony also got off the bridge and stood on the other side of Kyle's chair with Lorna's. Under the indifferent scrutiny of the 3 of Kyle, Leo and Lu Feng trembled slightly, not daring to take a breath, lowering their heads and not daring to meet their eyes. In the Galactic Federation, the combat value of the human species is 5, which means there is no danger. But today, each of these 3 humans from the Earth is terrifyingly strong, and they all turned into Demon King monsters, and ruined all the armed guards of an interstellar spaceship. "Don't you have anything to say?" Kyle said indifferently. Leo raised his head and said with difficulty, "Mr. Kyle, I think this is a misunderstanding, a very big misunderstanding." "Oh, a misunderstanding." Lorna smiled and stretched out her hand, accompanied by the lingering green mist. A Krypton gold shining blue light flew out of Leo's pocket, and she grabbed it in her hand, shaking it slightly. "So what is this?" This. Leo's face was pale, he hesitated to speak, and finally heaved a long sigh, and said dejectedly, "I admit it, I can give you everything I have, I just hope you can let me go." "That's what you said." Kyle smiled, snapped his fingers, and ordered, "Venom, go." The venom immediately protruded a black tentacle from Lorna's body, wrapping around Leo's neck like a poisonous snake. The head of the tentacle transformed into a sharp needle, aiming faintly at his temple. Leo's skin trembled slightly, and he felt a coolness on the back of his head. He looked at Kyle in horror, and said loudly, "What are you going to do to me? Didn't you say that you can give me everything?" Kyle said calmly, "That includes your memory and life, of course, you devil." Leo was trembling with fright, and yelled in horror, and only halfway through his words, his voice stopped abruptly. It was the black thread tentacles protruding from the venom, which penetrated into Leo's temple, penetrated into the brain tissue, and began to forcibly search for beneficial memory information. After 3 seconds, the venom was withdrawn from the tentacles, and Leo collapsed limply, his eyeballs rolled, and white brains flowed out from his temples. Lorna nodded to Kyle, smiled and said, "Boss. Venom said that he got the detailed information of the intermediary." "What about his friend who's been to Earth?" Kyle asked. Lorna sent a message, Venom said. "That man is also a star hunter, named Yondu. Leo himself is not very close to him, they just drank together, and star hunters often have disputes over resources, courage, Kyle touched his chin. He had a faint sense of familiarity with this name. Chapter 384 to Nova Empire. Yondu, Star-Lord, Guardians of the Galaxy. This series of messages flashed through Kyle's mind, and he didn't go back too much. After all, his purpose was to find Howard and others who had shown signs in the Galactic Federation. There is no need to intervene in the matter of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But having said that, during World War II on Earth and the period from the 21st century to the, street century, many aliens have descended on the Earth. Fortunately, they are not hostile, otherwise the Earth may have ceased to exist. Kyle didn't think about it anymore, his eyes fell back to his eyes, and he was still kneeling on the shivering Lu Feng beside Leo's body. At this time, Green Peak was on the verge of collapse. From his point of view, the three human natives in front of him were clearly star demons who ate people without spitting bones. The intelligence information has been obtained, boss. There is no need to keep this guy. Lorna crossed her arms, showing a very bright and charming smile. Yet, Kyle nodded calmly, stretched out his right hand forward, and gestured for a pistol. The tip of his index finger was like the muzzle of a gun, condensing a speck of dazzling fusion energy. Fusion energy has the effect of light wave charging and high temperature burning, and its penetrating and destructive power is far higher than that of ordinary laser energy. Being hit by this fusion energy, I'm afraid that the whole body will evaporate into nothingness on the spot. The light from Kyle's fingertips became more and more dazzling. Just before the launch, Lu Feng finally couldn't bear the fear of death, and his forehead suddenly hit the hard and smooth floor. Boom! Lu Feng lay on the ground and wailed, "Don't kill me, please, don't kill me. I still have value to you, please believe me." Oh, Kyle lowered his eyes, waved his right hand slightly, and dissipated the energy condensed in his fingertips. He looked down at Green Peak indifferently. "I'll give you a chance. Tell me, what value do you have?" Green Peak hesitated for a moment, and said, I am very familiar with the Galactic Federation. I can be your guide. From now on, I will be your slave. As long as you don't kill me, I will let you drive me. Do you think we are fools?" Kyle snorted coldly. "I have already obtained enough information about the Galactic Alliance from Leo, and I don't need to keep you, a slave who betrays us at any time." Lorna, who was standing aside, played with her curly hair with her fingers, and suggested, "Boss, it's better to let the venom absorb his memory together, so that the information of the Galaxy Alliance can be more comprehensive." This female devil. Seeing that Kyle really started to think about it, Green Peak couldn't help but said anxiously, "Actually, I'm not just Leo's confidant, I also have a second hidden identity." "What identity?" Kyle asked. Green Peak gritted his teeth and said discouragedly, "Ronan, I'm from Ronan." Ronan? Kyle knew about this name. Leo also mentioned just now that Ronan is the leader of the Kree. Recently, he has frequently targeted the Nova Empire and seems to want to start a battle in the Galactic Federation. "Ronan will absolutely kill me," Lu Feng sighed, and continued to say, "in order to survive. 10 years ago, as Ronan's subordinate, I accepted the mission issued by him and lurked in Leo's interstellar hunter group." Tony asked in surprise, "Does Leo have any important identity? And Ronan needs someone to look after him?" Green Peak shook his head and said, "No. Leo doesn't have a special identity. Ronan specially trained a group of elite spies and placed them in some well-known interstellar hunter groups, so that interstellar hunters who do not belong to any civilization forces become his pawns and sources of intelligence. If Ronan did this, he probably planned to start a war long ago, right?" Kyle said sharply. "I'm not going to hide this from you. In fact, decades ago, the Nova people and the Kree people were hostile forces, and a peace agreement was not signed until later," Lu Feng said slowly. "When Ronan was very young, his parents he was killed by the Nova, so now, as the leader of the Kree, he wants to launch a war to completely destroy the Nova Empire." He paused, took a deep breath and said, "And, I also know a big secret of Ronan." "What secret?" Lorna blinked. Green Peak said in a deep voice, "Ronan and a leader of Titan Star have cooperated in private. As long as Ronan gives the power gem, the leader of Titan will help Ronan destroy the Nova Empire." Titan Star, leader, Lorna and Tony were taken aback. There are so many messes in the Galactic Alliance, and somehow leader of civilization forces was involved. Only Kyle trembled slightly, and his broken golden pupils shone brightly. Lu Feng nodded and said with certainty, "I just heard that the leader of Tata seems to be called Mie." "Enough." Kyle interrupted Lu Feng's words. His face was extremely solemn, his fists were clenched tightly, and the energy overflowed, as if he had thought of something very bad. Boss, Lorna and Tony became nervous. It was the first time they saw Kyle showing such a serious and gloomy expression. Kyle nodded towards them, his face softened a little, and he said in a deep voice, "Okay. The grievances between Xing Xing and the Carrie have nothing to do with us. The top priority is to find Howard and the others as soon as possible and return to Earth safely. Once that man is involved, things will explode." Even if Kyle's current strength is not enough to beat Thanos, he is still very confident in saving his life, but it does not mean that he is not afraid of Thanos' threat to the Earth. Killing half a life with a snap of the fingers, this is no joke. Kyle looked at Lu Fang and said coldly, "Since you told Ronan's secret, I believe you know that you can't turn back." Green Peak nodded vigorously, and had already given the vote certificate. With a wave of Kyle's left hand, an item card was pulled out, which manifested as a metal electronic collar on the ground. "This is a self-explosive collar. The remote control is in my hand. Pressing the remote control button, or violently dismantling the collar will detonate the bomb. Blast a man who wears it into a headless corpse." "You put it on." Green Peak hesitated, and under the threatening eyes of Lorna and Tony, he had no choice but to put the collar on himself. "If we achieve our goal in the end, I will give you back your freedom before returning to Earth." Kyle narrowed his eyes, and the best way to deal with slaves is to give them a stick and a candy. "Obey, Master." Lu Fang was overjoyed, and quickly changed his words wittily. Kyle asked unceremoniously, "Where's the planet that has a mediator and is suitable for us to go to?" "Nova Empire." Green Peak blurted out, "Nova is a prosperous planet with high technology and civilization in the Galaxy Alliance. It is equivalent to the economic center of the Alliance. Even outsiders without identity can freely enter and exit." "Very good." Kyle snapped his fingers and gave an order, "Go to Nova Empire immediately." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385, The Nova Empire and Number 039, S. Old Man. Nova Empire, Alien Freedom Square. Under the strong light that is brighter than the sun and high temperature, countless translucent flat egg-shaped buildings stand upright, like a dense steel forest with strange shapes. It looks very wide. On the open Liberty Square, there are musical fountains and entertainment measures. Security robots patrol around in the air, and sweeping robots are busy working on the ground. This shows the tip of the iceberg of the local advanced technological level. There was a lot of people in the square, most of them were local news stars. Their appearance was almost the same as that of humans, and they also walked on 2 feet, but the hair on their heads was like a feather crown, and they were constantly swaying in the breeze. Those are the main race inhabiting the civilization of the Nova Empire, the Nova people. They are a cold-blooded humanoid race that evolved from the descendants of birds. Among the group of people walking in Liberty Square, Green Peak completely entered the role of guide, humbly lowered his body, and explained to Kyle, who is the leader of the team beside him. Kyle nodded, feeling in his heart, no matter what race, the ultimate evolutionary trend is humanoid. This is the Marvel Universe, after all. The local news star passed by Kyle and the others, glanced at them, and quickly looked away as if nothing had happened. Lorna held Kyle's arm, looked around with beautiful eyes, and said in amazement, "Why don't they feel a little strange when they see us outsiders?" "Miss Lorna, please look over there." Lu Fang stretched out his hand and pointed to the left. Kyle and the others followed the prompts and saw a team of aliens walking out from the crowd of low novas. The tall ones were all over 2 meters tall, their skin was as rough as stone, and they were carrying giant spikes. Cold weapons like rods and giant hammers. When they walked, even the floor trembled slightly, and many novas reluctantly avoided to the left and right. And over there, Green Peak pointed to another place. There were a few short orcs there, who hadn't fully evolved into human form, or had ears or tails, and they were chasing and playing quickly among the crowd, and the Nova people were also not surprised by this. How many alien races are there? Lorna opened her eyes wide. She hadn't noticed it just now. Now that she looked carefully, there were far more than stone giants and orcs in the square, and there were more non-Nova aliens walking among them. Innumerable. Green Peak smiled. The Nova Empire, as one of the 3 major alien empires of the Galactic Federation, although Novas occupy the majority, It is also a gathering place for countless alien races, and even cultures and worlds, so even outsiders can be accepted without prejudice when they come here. Strong national strength, freedom and equality, extremely high technology, supreme wisdom. This is really a good place, Kyle sighed softly. If the Earth wants to reach the level of a new star, I'm afraid it will take a long time. However, if alien forces invade the Earth, the Black Panther Kingdom implements external development, and the Nordic protists migrate to the solar system, the Earth civilization will undergo explosive subversive evolution. Hey, where did that guy Tony go? Lorna looked around, and suddenly found that Tony was gone, and there were only 3 people left in the team including her. When he got off the Eagle fighter plane, he said he wanted to learn more about the technology of this planet, so he flew away wearing a battle suit. Anyway, there are translators and communicators. We will contact him when we find information here. When Kyle said this, he couldn't help but smile. Stark, the father and son, were both pessimistic. Back then, when he was in the Black Panther Kingdom, Howard also got separated from him because of his obsession with advanced technology, and even broke into the scene of the Black Panther King's challenge ceremony. Boom. At this moment, following a noisy commotion, in the area not far from Kyle and others, there seemed to be a dispute between 2 creatures, which scared many Novas to flee and quickly cleared an open space. What's the matter? Lorna stood on tiptoe and looked over there curiously, but unfortunately she was still a certain distance away, so she couldn't see clearly. Master, Miss Lorna, we'd better ignore it. Green Peak is someone who has been there, and quickly gave a suggestion. Due to the large number of mixed biological races in the Nova Empire, conflicts and disputes are common, but they are basically caused by new outsiders. Troubles in the Nova Empire will end very miserable. Then don't worry about it, let's go to the intermediary first, Kyle responded coldly. He had just walked a few steps, and suddenly, there was a scream from the dispute field, which made him stop abruptly. What's the matter, boss? Lorna looked at Kyle puzzled. I seem to have heard this voice somewhere before. Kyle frowned, and turned his gaze to the disputed field full of human walls. In this new star far away from the Earth, is there anyone I know? At this time, in the disputed venue, the 3 stone giants formed a group, like 3 hills, condescendingly watching the little ones around them coldly. The little one seemed to be a fusion of a bear and a mouse, just the size of 2 palms, with drooping ears and tail, lying on the ground trembling all over, crying repeatedly. I was wrong, I was really wrong. The 3 stone men, brother, it hugged its wounded foot, and the oozing blood stained its white fur a little red. You want to steal our things? Are you tired of work? One of the stone men snorted coldly. I'm starved, Ice Bear explained feebly. Hungry? Speaking of hungry, I'm pretty hungry now too. The stone man looked at the white bear and licked his dry and rough lips. If you don't teach it a lesson, you think our 3 brothers are easy to bully. Be gentle, don't smash it into meat sauce, it's hard to handle. I come. The 3 stone men apparently still regarded this as their home planet, and murmured in disregard of Xing Tsing's rules and regulations. After some cold-blooded hunting and discussion, one of the stone men rolled up his sleeves and walked out, raised his mace high in his hand, and smashed it down amidst the desperate expression of the white bear and the exclamation of the surrounding novice. In an instant, a colored streamer flashed across the field at high speed, and plunged straight into the middle of the stone man and the white bear, fast. The speed of light is too fast. The alien crowd who were approaching to watch thought it was an illusion of vision, just blinked, and then saw a silver-haired young man in the field. His left hand resisted against the lower end of the mace, his back was facing the stone man, and his right hand held the white bear on the ground was directly mentioned. Okay, the stone man's eyes were wide open, he held the handle tightly with his palm, pouring all his strength on the mace, but no matter how the muscles in his arm trembled, the mace still couldn't be lowered down even an iota. How is this possible? The other 2 golems were also taken aback. You must know that they are the most powerful fighting race in the Galactic Alliance. The silver-haired young man held the mace casually, ignored the stone men, and smiled at the white bear. Hi, long time no see. You are. Bai Shuang was extremely weak, and opened the slit of his eyes with difficulty. The moment he recognized the silver-haired young man, he could no longer hold back his tears and whimpered, Kyle, I miss you so much. Chapter 386. Kyle. I miss you so much? You left Sokka suddenly and didn't take me with you. We're still not friends anymore. It's been 5 years. I thought I'd never see you again. Woo woo woo. Looking at the crying little white bear in his hand, a smile appeared on the corner of Kyle's mouth. He didn't expect that in this new star, he would actually run into an old friend he knew before. That's right, at the moment, what he rescued was Bibo, the genetically modified creature, guide and subordinate whom he met on planet Sokka back then. It's just that Bibo, who was injured and weak at this time, looks a lot of vicissitudes. His growth volume is 1/3 larger than when he was on Sokka, but his figure is much thinner. His whole body has white hair that is sluggish and dirty, and he has broken and injured legs. Still dripping blood. Kyle, it's really you, I'm not dreaming, am I? Cough cough. Bibo's breathing was weak, and with a violent cough, blood and internal organs were coughed up. It was obvious that the Stone Man's attack hadn't even thought about it before. Keep your hands. Of course it's me, Bibo. As I said on planet Sokka, as long as you follow me, then I will keep you safe in the future. Kyle rarely showed a gentle smile, and said firmly, since I'm here, it's fine. I remember. Bibo resisted the pain, forced a smile and showed a row of white teeth, then closed his eyes and passed out. Leave it to me. Kyle nodded slightly, and turned his head calmly. He looked at the Stone Man in front of him, and a cold light flashed in his eyes with broken golden pupils. Who are you? Do you want to stand up for that little mouse? The Stone Man kicked him and roared, changing from one hand to holding it with both hands. His muscles puffed up and exerted all his strength, trying to use the mace to kill Kyle, and Bibo was ground into meat sauce. Haven't you heard such a saying? It depends on the owner when beating a dog. Kyle sneered, and suddenly exerted strength in his hand. The mace he was holding seemed to be made of plastic, and it immediately slid inward, leaving shocking finger marks. Zizzy. Chi-Juan's fusion energy surged and radiated, wrapped around Kyle's fingertips, and spread out like a rage. The mace was corroded and evaporated by the fusion energy at a speed visible to the naked eye. The Stone Man was startled, and hastily let go of the handle, watching his steel mace become a small piece of scrap iron. Brother, don't be afraid, let's help. The other two Stone Men thought about 3 against 1, and had no reason to be afraid of retreating, so they all took a step forward. The 3 Stone Men seemed to form a fortress wall, casting shadows covering a large area where Kyle was. Kyle's face was as calm as before. For him now, there is not much difference between 1 Stone Man and 3 Stone Men. When the gap in combat power between them is too large, it means that ants are not even the slightest threat to elephants. With endless coldness in Kyle's eyes, he threw the scrap iron in his hand aside, and opened his left palm gently towards the 3 Stone Men. Like the engine in the palm of Tony Mark's battlesuit, his palms condensed dazzling scorching energy, cold killing intent that is practically substantive, and the oppressive aura as a high-dimensional evolutionary life is rising steadily. Kyle was really angry. He didn't want to hide his strength anymore, and directly used the strongest and most effective means to send these little characters to hell. The 3 Stone Men originally wanted to take the initiative to attack, but in front of Kyle at this moment, their upper and lower rows of teeth began to collide with each other, making a crisp and frightening click, and the whole body trembled involuntarily, and their feet seemed to be perfused. It's hard to move when it's full of mercury fear. Originated from the fear deep in the genes. As a well-known fighting nation in the Galaxy Alliance, the Stone People's rock-solid defense physique allows them to basically walk sideways in the starry sky. But now, they feel the innate fear that goes deep into the genetic level from Kyle, a human being. How is this possible? Cold sweat secreted profusely from the foreheads of the 3 Stone Men. In the Galactic Federation, there was such an ancient rumor. When the biological evolution reaches the limit, its existence has the possibility of reaching the supreme wisdom. The supreme intelligence is usually the founding elder and patron saint of a huge civilization. They can abandon their bodies at will and change into all forms of cognition. They have an endless lifespan like a galaxy, and their consciousness can peer down into the mysteries of life and explore the truth of the universe. For the weak, the supreme intelligence is God, and for the strong, the supreme intelligence is fear incarnate. The Stone People had seen a supreme wisdom, and from Kyle, they felt almost the same fear in an incredible way. To outsiders, the 3 Stone Men seemed to be bewitched. They stood motionless, and the fusion energy still accumulated in Kyle's palm became brighter and brighter. Green Peak suddenly pushed aside the human wall, and when he saw Kyle attacking the Stone Man, he shouted eagerly, "Master, be merciful." Seeing that Kyle didn't respond, Green Peak persuaded Lorna, who was beside him, "Tell the master to stop, it will be too late." Lorna shook her head and looked at the field. "No one can dissuade you, angry boss. Goodbye, Kyle whispered. His palm was like a cannon anti-aircraft gun, blasting out a beam of colorful beams, covering the burly bodies of the 3 stone men in an instant. The light beam was too fast and too dazzling. The onlookers only saw the flash of the glare, and subconsciously closed their eyes in exclamation. When they opened their eyes again, an extremely terrifying scene appeared in front of them. Pada. I saw the remnants of 3 headless stone men falling back on the ground one after another, with burnt green smoke emitting from their necks, and their heads were obviously blasted to pieces by the fusion energy. The dead, oh my god, killed, really killed. The onlookers immediately exploded, and with the continuous screams, countless people panicked and fled the scene frantically. Soon, there were only 3 headless corpses of stone men left, as well as Kyle, Babo, Lorna, and Green Peak and his party. Kyle withdrew his palm expressionlessly, and Lorna quickly approached, carefully hugging Babo in his hand. Lu Feng originally wanted to run away among the crowd, but remembered that he was still wearing a self-destruct device around his neck, and couldn't help stamping his feet in frustration, rubbing his hands through his hair and anxiously saying, "It's not good, the big thing is not good, what's wrong?" Lorna looked at him and asked in surprise. Green Peak hurriedly said, "I should have told you earlier. The Nova Empire is indeed open to the outside world and pursues freedom and equality, but it must abide by the local laws and order. It is already a serious crime to cause conflicts and disputes in the Nova Empire, let alone openly kill people. We will be caught by the Nova Corps and put in prison." As soon as his words fell, Kyle and Lorna raised their heads and saw dense fighters and aircraft suddenly appearing in the nearby sky, quickly swarming here from far to near. At the same time, near the ground, with the sound of a sharp siren, many Radiant suspension vehicles approached at a high speed, waiting to surround the area where Kyle and the others were located. Chapter 387 The Strongest Escape, Flying at Extreme Speed. On Liberty Square where the crowd scattered. It's over, it's over, it's over now. Green Peak looked at the surrounding sky, those aircrafts that were as dense as locusts, slapped his forehead fiercely, thinking that he would either flee or stay, so he could only wail helplessly. "We're not afraid yet, what are you arguing about?" Lorna glared at him angrily. Green Peak twitched the corners of his mouth, crying sadly, "You don't understand, Xing's laws are extraordinarily harsh. Just causing disputes is enough to be sentenced, let alone killing living organisms without authorization. We are now major criminals in Xing. Once we are caught, if you arrive, you will be imprisoned in the strongest interstellar prison for the rest of your life. I want to see what the new Star Guard can do." Although Lorna said that, she looked around the sky and the ground, and the Nova Corps seemed to be swept by the disaster, and she knew the pros and cons in her heart. Nova is one of the best civilized empires in the Galactic Federation, with strong national strength and extremely high-tech level. Their armed forces should not be underestimated. Her magnetic power control, although she has the confidence and capital to be proud, she never dares to say that it can shake the forces of alien civilization. Lorna cast her eyes on Kyle. "Boss, what should we do? Leave here first. There's no need to get entangled with them." Kyle was calm and unpretentious, as if he didn't know how much trouble he had caused. Green Peak widened his eyes and moaned in disbelief. "Master, are you kidding? Leave? How do we leave now? We have all been locked by the Nova satellite and the Nova Legion, and at the speed of the Nova's top-level aircraft, there is no trace possibility of escape. How do you know if you don't try?" Kyle smiled lightly, and softly called Venom, and the venom parasitic on his body immediately stretched out a pair of dark wings with lightning patterns from his back. Seeing that the Nova Corps was about to arrive, Kyle didn't stay any longer. The dark cuticle quickly covered the whole body, and the muscles of the arms continued to expand and elongate, like a pair of giant claws shaped like an evil black dragon. Kyle grabbed Lorna and Green Peak with both hands, and his wings seemed to be flapped back slightly. As the hurricane roared and raged, his whole body turned into a black streamer, and he quickly broke through to the sky outside the square. The suspension vehicles that rushed to the scene from the ground were one step too late and stopped suddenly, surrounding the small open space in place. The Nova Guard who got out of the car looked at the sky. Kyle and the others, who had become black spots in their field of vision, were astonished and hurriedly opened the communication channel of the nearby Nova Corps. "There's an emergency. Criminals can fly." Repeat again. A group of criminals is flying away, a total of 4, fleeing towards the east side of Liberty Square at supersonic speed. Please guard the air domain to intercept immediately. Learn. The first team is ready to launch a conjoined interception. The other teams are pursuing. The criminal must not be allowed to leave. I don't know how many responses sounded, and the aircraft gathered towards Liberty Square adjusted their sailing direction in unison. The engines roared and accelerated, and they chased after Kyle, who broke through the air. Regardless of the situation outside the Nova, in the interior of the Nova planet, the Nova Legion is the absolute sanctioner here. Over the past few decades, there have been countless outsiders who have caused troubles on Nova, but as long as the Nova Corps arrives, the conflict will end. And today, at noon, the drama seems to have just begun. Over the bustling city of the Nova Empire, alien residents can be seen when they look up. Countless densely swarming Guardian Legion fighter planes and unmanned aerial vehicles, flying densely in the sky like a large dark cloud, buzzing closely behind a dark Kyle. The distance between the two is still rapidly getting closer. Wow, they're here. Green Peak's waist was held by Kyle's left hand, as if hanging in midair. Due to the strong wind pressure, his limbs drooped down, swinging wildly with the wind, and even saliva flew all over him while howling. Lorna and Babo are relatively better. Kyle deliberately deformed and enlarged his right hand, making his palm like a black cocoon, which just wrapped the two, so that they avoided the wind pressure and suffocation they suffered under supersonic flight. Hearing the dense sound of engines behind him, Kyle didn't say a word, and looked back a little. The fighters of the Nova Legion were still speeding up. In less than half a second, the distance was shortened from, meters to, meters. Two starfighters approached to Kyle's left and right sides, aiming at him, and the configured horn sounded a siren. For criminals, please pay attention. You have violated Article 1 of the Nova Law and are suspected of killing living organisms, and Nova Law, 10 rules. Escape illegally. Please land immediately where you are, and be caught. Otherwise, repeat again. Without waiting for the horn to say more, Kyle's dark wings flapped, leaving circles of white airwaves in the air, and the flying speed was raised to another level, reaching the terrifying pseudo-light speed, and separated from the Nova Corps aircraft again. Wah wah wah, Lu Fang let the airflow collide, and the wailing sound became even more heart-piercing. Flying at the pseudo-light speed, on the Earth, even the most advanced aviation rockets can't catch up with the maximum firepower. But in Nova, pseudo-light speed flight is only the basic standard of flight, and technology has long been overcome and far surpassed. But after a while, the Nova Guard's aircraft approached Kyle again, and the horn sounded a warning. This is Nova's last warning. If you don't land immediately, the Legion will force the criminals. Kyle still had no intention of responding, and still maintained the extreme flight of the Dark Wings. In the next moment, he suddenly frowned slightly, and the wings flapped and raised suddenly, and several laser beams passed dangerously by himself. Please land immediately. The threatening warning from the horn of the Legion aircraft followed closely. At the same time, several of the most closely pursued aircraft emitted linear light arcs, which were connected and woven into an orange net. As the flight speed continued to increase, the giant light net shrouded Kyle's back like a hunting prey. It's over. Lu Fang rolled his eyes, tilted his head back, and showed a tragic expression of relief after seeing this scene. The end? It's just the beginning. Kyle smiled, and suddenly took a deep breath, and the broken golden pupils revealed dazzling daylight. As if the main switch had been turned on, and a powerful force in his body began to awaken and activate. Zzzz, the colorful fusion energy, like a powerful arc, surged from Kyle's chest, accumulating on the body surface like a buff halo. This time, Kyle completely turned into a colorful streamer, so fast that the airflow and wind pressure were all left behind before it was disturbed. The giant optical network was already approaching within 5 meters, and it was about to catch up with Kyle, but the moment the fusion energy appeared, the giant optical network, the starfighter, and even the bombarded laser beams all blurred into light and shadow and retreated rapidly. The critical point of the speed of light is easily crossed, and then it will increase and transcend endlessly. The alien pilot of the Nova Corps aircraft looked out of the windshield at this moment, and the criminal who could see a trace of tail flame was all dumbfounded like a sculpture. Chapter 388 1 foot. Staring at Kyle and others who were about to disappear into the visible horizon, bathed in dazzling glare energy, the tail flame dragged a slender and straight trajectory at high altitude. While the chasing Nova Corps was stupefied, the guards flying the fighter planes all looked at the display panel in disbelief. I read it right. Indeed, I read it right. The fighter plane I was driving had activated the maximum engine horsepower, and the flight speed even reached the critical point of the speed of light. But what makes people desperate is that the opponent's speed is far above them. The starfighter, which originally had the speed advantage, can only watch Kyle and others continue to distance themselves. Are you really going to be escaped by criminals, or is it when the Nova Corps, which is good at air dominance, is dispatched? The alien guards, as proud as the Nova Legion, naturally couldn't accept this fact, but the speed of the two sides was still pulling away, so they could only bite the bullet and chase after them to eat up the tail dust raised along the way. Air Force has the criminal successfully intercepted. Seeing that the Nova Corps fighter jets in the sky had not responded for a long time, the ground troops connected to the communication channel for all inquiries. As a result, the channel fell into silence without a response from the guards. The air control unit of the Nova Corps, the driving guards, were collectively closed to themselves, and they were really depressed and speechless. How to answer? Could it be that the escape speed of criminals is faster than their most advanced fighter jets? No new star would dare to believe this. At this time, someone needs to stand up. The captain of the air control unit coldly issued an order on the voice channel: "Keep chasing me, and we must not let the criminal escape." Bet that our Nova Corps has been fighting across the Galaxy Federation for hundreds of years. Dignity. Yes, the Air Force responds in good spirits, but the reality is cruel. No matter how hard they drive their engines to chase, they can't even see the criminal's tail flame in their field of vision. Only the target cursor is still displayed on the satellite detection screen. The gap of several kilometers in seconds open up the position. I can only continue to chase, even if I can't catch up. It has become a fact. Suddenly, a force connected to the channel forcibly. The captain of the team said calmly, "I just returned from patrolling outside the planet and are chasing criminals. Do you need the help of our sanctioning force? It is the sanctions force of the Nova Corps." The Air Force chasing Kyle and others were overjoyed, as if they had seen a savior. The Nova Corps has a clear division of labor, including ground troops for internal security, air control troops, and sanctioned troops for external combat and defense. The sanctioned troops are the strongest Legion troops in the Nova Empire, the first and last strong guard barrier. According to common sense, it is unprecedented for sanctioned troops to participate in the arrest of criminals, and it is a bit of a fuss, but at this moment, the Nova Corps can't care so much. If the criminals escape in front of them, that is the Nova Empire, a great shame that cannot be washed away. Sanctioned troops, where's your approximate location? Soon, a guard of the air superiority troops said excitedly. About, kilometers in front of you, the sanctions force responded quickly. That's great. The guards of the Air Force were refreshed, as if they had returned to heaven from hell, and excitedly said, "We will keep chasing. The criminals are going to you. Please intercept now. Pay attention, the opponent's moving speed above the limit flight speed of our fighter plane. Please intercept it on the spot. Learn, it's hundreds of miles away." Thousands of fighter planes of the sanctioning force were suspended in the air. The fighter planes were all printed from the same mold. The whole body was gray silver and cold metal, and they opened their wings one after another, contrasting with the strong golden light. They are like well-trained flexible bee swarms, starting to adjust the hovering position row by row, from the sky of the dome all the way down to the surface of the plane. Call out. Kyle's body glowed with fusion energy, leading Lorna and the others, passing through the sky at high speed like a meteor. Wow wow wow, Lu Fang was already unconscious, on the cusp of the waves washed by the strong wind. Sometimes he passed out, and sometimes he woke up, switching back and forth between these two states. Kyle turned around and looked behind him. The Nova Corps that was following had long since disappeared, so he whispered to Weiss, who had transformed into an electronic pendant, "It feels almost the same. Weiss, help me block the satellite signal. I want to be below. Find a place to get rid of the tail behind you completely." Weiss responded immediately, "Okay, wait a minute, Master. We found out that there are local guard fighter planes in front, and the number is very exaggerated, far more than the fighter planes chasing us. There are also in front." Kyle narrowed his eyes, kept flying at extreme speed, raised his head and looked forward. At the end of the line of sight, a piece of golden light appeared, and a huge and boundless golden arc-shaped light network appeared. In the past, the hunting optical net woven by 3 or 4 fighters of the Nova Legion was enough to wrap a medium-sized fighter, but now hundreds of thousands of fighters are connected, and the optical network woven together is like a giant wall connecting the sky and the earth. The optical network not only seals the sky and the ground, but also extends to both sides, with almost no end in sight. Lu Feng opened his eyes in a daze, saw the wall of light in front of him from the corner of his eye, woke up like a jerk, and said in horror, That is the unique interception and defense function of the Nova Corps aircraft. Looking at this posture, I am afraid it is 8,000 fighter planes are joined together, engines and energy are shared, not to mention ordinary starships. Even the most powerful spaceships and warships in the Galactic Federation can easily stop them, being blocked by them ahead of time, no matter how fast it is. It doesn't make sense. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he tilted his head again, rolled his eyes and fell into coma. Kyle's face is calm, looking at the golden light net that is getting closer. He has no intention of slowing down at all, but instead extracts the fusion energy with all his strength, so that more energy surges and entangles and condenses on the body surface. Quick, hurry up, Kyle yelled in his heart. The glare overflowed, the tail flame had been dragged to a length of 10 meters, and the body was so bright that it seemed to be propelled by spontaneous combustion. Trying its best to squeeze out the potential of hidden energy in the body. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 100 meters. The closer he was to the blocking optical network formed by 1,000 Nova fighters, Kyle's speed was still increasing. The comparison between the two was like a heroic scene of moths flying into flame. In an instant, the colorful streamer crashed into the center of the huge optical network, and the optical network was slightly dented inward with resilience, and the streamer belonging to Kyle faltered like it was stuck in a quagmire. Is it done? Just when the Nova guards collectively thought that they had finally stopped the criminal, several fighter planes, which were the central cornerstone of the optical network, cracked with violent tremors, and the cracks soon continued to the golden optical network. Boom! Liu Guang simply tore a gap in the optical net, pierced through it fiercely, and then flew towards the blue sky behind the optical net without slowing down, completely disappearing at the end of the sky in the blink of an eye. Tough and indestructible optical network center. An enlarged gap in the footprints appeared on it extremely clearly, and was deeply engraved in the minds of the guards of the Nova Legion. With one kick, broke the absolute defense built by the Nova Empire's tens of thousands of years of top technology? Chapter 389 Babylon number 039, S Tragic Experience. This day, the Nova people were surprised, and they didn't know what happened on the Nova, so that the high-level officials ordered to temporarily block the entry and exit of the Nova, and dispatched the entire Nova Corps. All of a sudden, the sky and the ground are full of patrol robots, and every alien armed guard is carrying out a carpet-like search inside the planet with red eyes. On the other side, somewhere in the outskirts of the Nova Empire, an Eagle fighter plane is parked inside the dense forest, with the stealth mode turned on, and Weiss, with its extremely high-tech creations, sits in the command. Not to mention the global satellite and aircraft scanning, it cannot be detected even if it is close to it. After Kyle used the fusion energy to increase his body by a large margin, displayed his extreme speed flight, and broke through the siege of the Nova Corps, with the help of artificial intelligence Weiss, he summoned a stuck Eagle fighter to lurk here, which can be regarded as avoiding the outside world. Frantic and lively limelight. The interior of an Eagle fighter jet. Under Lorna's careful care, Bibo bandaged the wound, added a shot of quick-acting nutrition, and soon healed up and woke up. Lounge bed. Bibo got up slowly, rubbing his sleepy eyes with his paws, and looked around at the unfamiliar internal environment of the fighter plane. When he saw Kyle standing beside him, he rushed towards him in shock. Lorna was taken aback. She thought that Bibo was going to launch an attack and was about to use his ability to stop her, but the next moment she was dumbfounded. She saw Bibo's claws tightly hugging Kyle's thigh, sobbing with snot and tears. Kyle. I'm not dreaming, it's so great to meet you. It's okay, it's okay. Kyle was a little dumbfounded. When he was on Sokka, although Bibo was timid and cautious, he still had a certain combat power as a scavenger. He never thought that he would be reduced to a thief who couldn't even eat enough in Sing Sing. Kyle was puzzled, pulled Bibo away from his lap, lifted it and put it back on the bed, looked at it and asked directly, "Aren't you on Sokka? Why are you here?" "It's a long story," Bai Chang sighed, and said with emotion, "You don't know. At the beginning, you fought to the end with the Demon King in the interstellar duel field on Sokka, but you suddenly fled on the Eagle fighter plane, which triggered Sakar. An unprecedented huge sensation in the history of Caxing, and then," Kyle nodded. Given the situation at the time, escaping from Sokka was also the best choice for being forced to do so. The Grandmaster sent all his subordinates to arrest you, but then you flew into the wormhole vortex with a fighter plane and completely disappeared. When Bibo said this, he trembled with lingering fear, and he was afraid to say, the strongest dual champion under him, the Demon King and the captain of the guard, were killed, and you, The winner escaped successfully. The Grand Master was naturally furious. He spared no effort. You sent people to conduct a close investigation and arrest everyone on Sokka who had intercourse with you. Me, and Lee, and my sister and brother are all included. Then how did you escape? Kyle was a little surprised. He still knew the temperament of the master. His eyes could not tolerate sand, and after suffering such a big loss, he would definitely not give good fruit to Babo and the others who had made friends with him. You don't know. At that time, I was so frightened that I was locked in a cage within Lee and the others. I will take your place and participate in the life and death fight in the duel field again. Babo babbled again, then patted his chest, and said slowly, the day before we went to the duel field, it was your G. She secretly rescued us, and arranged for us to drive an interstellar spaceship. The spaceship escapes through a wormhole, Yi. Kyle showed a dazed expression. Yi was the first person he met to have a rare purple ability card. As a hybrid of light elves and dark elves, at that time the bloodline ability had not been fully awakened, so it could not be drawn, and the specific ability and power were not known. If there was anyone who could rescue Babo and the others from the master, only Yi had this ability on Sokka. Could it be that Yi is also on the new star? Regarding Kyle's question, Babo shook his head dejectedly, and replied, at that time, the master's subordinates were chasing us. Yi and we were divided into 2 fighter jets and spaceships. Yi deliberately lured away the pursuers in order to buy us time to escape. Later we successfully passed through the wormhole vortex and transferred to the area of the Galactic Federation. I see. Kyle nodded, looked at Babo's darkened vicissitudes of hair, and said in surprise, then you are here. It's so embarrassing, isn't it? Babo took his words, and said without tears, although we escaped from Sokka, we came to the Galactic Federation. We are unfamiliar with the place, and we wanted to find a peaceful and stable civilized planet to live. Who knows, unluckily, I ran into the interstellar hunters. The belongings of my 2 siblings, Anli and my spaceship, were confiscated, and they were sold as slaves to human traffickers. Escaped. Kyle was speechless for a while. From this point of view, there is only one word to describe Babo's experience. Since leaving him, everything he has experienced is a life of suffering. No wonder now when I see him, I want to hug my thigh crying and screaming. Then do you know where Anli's 2 siblings were sold? Kyle thought, since he was implicated, if he knew the location, he might as well rescue him if he had the ability. I don't know. We were sold separately. They are much more valuable than me. They should be sold to some high-end alien customers. Babo was extremely depressed, and he was always brooding about being classified as an edible creature. Boss, it looks pitiful. Why don't we take it in? Lorna blinked and shook Kyle's arm affectionately. Kyle nodded, and said to Babo, then follow me back, okay? I will definitely become a sharp weapon in your hands, Mr. Kyle. I have confidence. Babo shook his paw excitedly, and said resolutely. No, you can just be the mascot who shouts nice next to you. Kyle secretly laughed in his heart. At this moment, someone knocked on the door of the lounge suddenly. After he told Weiss to open the door, Lu Feng walked in humbly. Master, about the intermediary. Before Lu Feng finished speaking, Babo jumped up abruptly, quickly hid behind Kyle, looked at Lu Feng tremblingly, and yelled in horror, why are you here? Lu Feng also recognized Babo. His face was very embarrassed. He hesitated to speak. Seeing this scene, Kyle said clearly, Babo, what you said just now, could it be the interstellar hunter group that Green Peak is in? That's right. It's him. Even when he turns into ashes, I can recognize him. Babo's hair stood on end, staring at Lu Feng viciously. Brother Babo, this is a misunderstanding. Listen to me, Lu Feng said awkwardly. I was just following the orders of Captain Leo. I really didn't mean to arrest you, you bastard. Babo gritted his teeth, looking like he was about to fight with his sleeves rolled up. Lorna stretched out her hands, hugged Babo, and comforted, okay, the Star Hunters group has been wiped out by our group, and the remaining Green Peak is also a slave. Tell me, what happened to the intermediary? Kyle looked at Lu Feng and asked coldly. After experiencing the incident at noon, Green Peak was even more convinced of Kyle, and flattered him. The intermediary of Nova, after learning about your feat for the Nova Corps, expressed his desire to meet you very much. The time is tonight, and the location is up to you. Quotation mark. Chapter 390 Intermediary Information. Nova into the night. There are 2 crescent moons hanging high in the dark blue night sky. The bustling steel cities all over the planet, and the inner streets and urban areas are brightly lit, competing with the natural bright moonlight in the sky. This is the Never Night Star built on the technological civilization of the Galactic Federation. When the alien residents with strange shapes start to live at night, the Nova Corps will inevitably concentrate its defense efforts outside the planet. A radiant suspension car drives into the new city from the outskirts, passes through a series of security checks, and finally arrives at a relatively remote hotel. Alien bar. Sir, you're here. The driver of the suspension car got out of the car, opened the door politely, bowed his head and made a gesture of greeting. First, the black boots stretched out, and then a young, thin, black-haired youth stepped out from the back seat. He nodded slightly to the alien driver, who was as short as a dwarf, and threw out a small bag of Galactic Union currency, which the alien driver hurriedly took, weighed it with his hands, and immediately grinned and thanked again and again. After the alien driver drove the hover car away, the black-haired young man looked up at the bar signboard, reached out and pressed the doorbell next to the closed door. A camera was activated at the corner of the building, and pointed the flashing red dot lens at the young man's face. "Outsider, please report your identity and purpose," a hoarse and deep voice sounded. The black-haired young man frowned slightly, and did not make any other unnecessary movements. He just snapped his two fingers, and a ray of glare shot out from his fingertips in an instant, and shot towards the camera in the corner. In this Nova Empire, there seems to be nothing that can represent one's identity better than fusion energy. Boom. The camera exploded, electric arcs shot out, and the flames splashed out, leaving only a burnt mark on the corner of the original wall. Diddy. At the same time, the closed electronic door of the bar suddenly opened, and the black-haired young man walked in without hesitation. After passing the threshold, the thick electronic door closed automatically. In the originally dark room, the ceiling and walls suddenly lit up with lights. The ballroom, guest tables and chairs, bar counters, bar racks, etc., have everything a bar needs, but the inside is deserted. There is only one gentleman in a suit. The white-haired middle-aged man in uniform stood at the bar, pouring a glass of colorful wine in his hand. "You are the intermediary Nova." The black-haired young man looked at the only person in the room, and continued to walk forward. In the last few steps, he lifted the venom camouflage on his body, his jet-black hair turned to silvery white, his pupils returned to the radiant golden color, and his body grew tall and strong a bit. To be more precise, it is one of Nova's intermediaries, Albert. Nova is one of the best imperial civilizations in the Galaxy Federation. Including me, there are more than 5 underground intermediaries. The bartender smiled, looked at Kyle, who was approaching, and praised, "I didn't expect that. The location is up to you to decide, and you would choose to come to my main site. A lone character who escaped. Just call me Kyle." Kyle sat on a chair casually, picked up a glass of wine that he had mixed, and took a sip as if to quench his thirst. After letting the taste bloom on the tip of his tongue, he praised, "Your bartending skills are also good." "I'm not only good at bartending skills," Albert said cheerfully, "Mr. Kyle, you should have just come to the Galactic Federation not long ago, and after entering the Alliance area, you met Leona's team of star hunters. It's a pity, Ray. They have been in the galaxy for decades, but this time they were so unlucky that they robbed a strongman that even the Nova Corps can't do anything about." Kyle said calmly with a blank face, "How do you know?" "Green Peak told you. It's working under your command now, so naturally it doesn't dare to speak casually. I judge these based on the information I have." Albert spread his hands and explained, "The Leo Star Hunters group likes to pick outsiders to hunt, and you are a top figure as powerful as Mr. Kyle. You have never left a file in the intelligence network of the Galaxy Alliance before. At noon, you suddenly became famous because of the pursuit of the Nova Corps, so I conclude that you are an outsider who just came to the Alliance. Good job." Kyle smiled lightly. He was not worried that the other party was sophisticated, but worried that the so-called intermediary did not have enough information channels. Albert poured the wine for Kyle, smiled and said, "Mr. Kyle, don't be offended, I didn't investigate you on purpose. You showed your ability at noon, so I naturally have to show my intelligence ability." Kyle nodded, and complained secretly in his heart. He really didn't believe that the other party didn't secretly investigate the information, check and judge the power of the fusion energy. But it doesn't matter if the other party knows. After all, even Kyle himself has not fully figured out the birth and mystery of fusion energy. Kyle didn't intend to make any more detours, looked at Albert, and said straight to the point, "I need to know the whereabouts of a few people." By information, Albert showed a dazed expression, thought for a while, and quickly responded, "You might as well tell me first. You need to find the names and characteristics of those people." "Weiss," Kyle called softly, raised his left hand, and the electronic watch on his wrist projected a blue shimmer, forming a three-dimensional screen in the midair of the cool air in the room. Howard, a gentleman with a mustache; Logan, a cool wolf with inch hair; and Lucy, a lovely blonde. All three names and faces are presented on the screen. Kyle looked at the three extremely familiar faces on the three-dimensional screen, feeling a lot of melancholy in his heart. The original buddies, subordinates, and lovers have not been seen for decades after parting shortly after the end of World War II. No matter what, they must be brought back to Earth safely. This is one of Kyle's few remaining long-cherished wishes. Albert looked at the screen carefully, his eyes paused on Howard, touched his chin and asked, "Is it okay to only know the intelligence information of one of them?" Yes. With Kyle's tenacity, it was difficult to suppress his emotions at this time, and he clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, "Do you know whose whereabouts that?" Albert stretched out his finger, pointing at Howard on the screen, and said, "I know that there is a person who definitely has information on where this human being is. Because that person once said that when repairing equipment on the planet. I met an old human who is very good at manufacturing and modifying technological equipment. Who is that person?" Kyle couldn't help asking. Seeing Albert's hesitation, he took out a Krypton gold from his pocket in an instant and put it on the table. "I use this to buy all the information you know about Howard." "Very good, very good." Albert picked up the Krypton gold with a smile, showing a greedy expression of a businessman, looked at the Krypton gold and said in surprise, "This energy crystal, why is there blood on it?" "Don't worry, it's mine. It's just that Star Hunter Leo touched it," Kyle replied coldly. Albert gasped, not daring to procrastinate, and hurriedly said, "Deal. That man's name is Quill. He calls himself Star-Lord, and he's also a Star Hunter. He's seen that human named Howard on a certain planet." Quotation mark. Chapter 391 Night Exploration of the Interstellar Prison. Kyle came out of the bar, looked up at the night sky, and finally had a conversation with the intermediary Albert, still faintly echoing in his ears. If it was fine before, as long as there is enough bounty, interstellar hunters like Quill will not only lead the way, but also work hard for you. It's a pity that you are a few days late. Why, is that Star-Lord dead? No, but it's about the same. A few days ago, he was arrested by the Nova Corps because of a fight with 3 aliens in Liberty Square. He was accused of violating the security of the Empire and colluding with Ronan. He is currently being held at Keene Heights Security Prison. Very well, as long as he is still alive, then everything is not a problem. After Kyle finished speaking calmly, he turned and left directly, and Albert didn't try to dissuade him. For the intermediary, it is simply collecting and buying and selling information, as well as the intermediate communication of the bounty task, and will not participate in risky things. "Cayenne Prison, Star-Lord Quill," Kyle murmured softly, his eyes flashed brightly. "It is good to have clues after all. Most afraid of wandering around in the huge galactic federation like a headless chicken." And a few years passed by after a stay. If Howard and the others can be found, let alone an interstellar prison, he will also make a breakthrough in the Titan star field. But before that, it is still necessary to return to the Eagle fighter plane, so as not to go out for too long. Lorna and others will only increase their worries. Thinking of this, Kyle let the venom completely cover his body, and stretched out his dark wings behind him, like a huge bat that appeared at night, flapping his wings and flying towards the outside of the city where the crescent moon hangs high. In the outskirts of the forest, in the Eagle fighter in stealth mode. When Kyle returned smoothly, Lorna, who had been waiting at the door for a long time as soon as he entered the cabin, stepped forward and hugged his arms happily, leading him into the relatively spacious main cab. Kyle walked into the cab, only to find that Tony had returned from the inspection, still wearing the steel battlesuit, took off the helmet, and sat on the chair with a tired face and closed his eyes to rest. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Tony woke up suddenly. Seeing Kyle, he jumped up from the chair, looking expectant and nervous, took a deep breath and asked, "Godfather, is there any news about Father and the others?" When Tony asked questions, everyone in the cab, including Green Peak and Bibo, looked at Kyle subconsciously. Kyle patted Tony on the shoulder, made a bang bang, and then nodded with a smile. "Great." Tony clenched his fist excitedly. He was a middle-aged man in his 40s and, but at this moment he was crying with joy like a child. "Is there really any news about Madame and the others?" Lorna opened her mouth, feeling an inexplicable feeling in her heart, and could only hug Kyle's arm tightly. "Don't worry, there is just a little clue." Kyle told Tony to calm down, and told everyone all the information he had received from the intermediary. "That is to say, that Quill who was imprisoned in Chin prison once met my father on a certain planet, and his father also helped him repair equipment." Tony's eyes were red, thinking about saying goodbye for about 20 years. The suave and unruly boy back then is now a mature bearded uncle. And I don't know if his father can still recognize him. Manufacturing lunatics like them dedicate their lives to technology. They seem cold-blooded and ruthless, but their hearts are beyond the scorching heat of looking for people. They actually value loved ones and commitments above all else. "Cayenne prison, I still know about it," Bibo said. "The prisoners arrested by the Nova Corps will be detained in Cayenne, which is a suspended prison fortress built outside Nova and transformed from an asteroid. There will be guards from the Nova Corps 24 hours a day." "That's right," Green Peak echoed, paused and said, "but there is one thing that outsiders don't know. The location of Cayenne prison is a meteorite belt, and there is a black hole not far away. The external space environment is very harsh. The Nova Legion fighter jets guarded it. There is basically no possibility of escape for the criminals inside, and it is extremely difficult for those outside to rescue them." Tony's expression changed, and he said in a deep voice, "Godfather, when it comes to the Nova Corps, you must pay more attention and be careful. I deliberately learned about the technological level of the Nova this afternoon. They have common technologies that most alien races have, such as the speed of light, space starships, individual energy weapons, force fields, super light communication technology, etc. And on this basis, there are Legion fighters with their own unique style. The fighters of the Nova Legion can skillfully use force fields, energy, and connection combinations to create an optical network with both offensive and defensive capabilities. Because of this, no civilization in the Galaxy Alliance dares to be an enemy of Nova. Once we meet Superior." As Tony was talking, he suddenly noticed that something was wrong with the atmosphere in the room. Kyle didn't speak, and the others looked at him strangely. "What's wrong?" Tony asked, confused. Lorna reminded, "Well, Tony, don't you know? At noon, we had already had actual combat contact with the fighters of the Nova Corps." "No way." Tony was a little confused. "More than that, the Master also compared the flying speed with the fighters of the Nova Corps, and kicked their proud optical net, and broke it. If Lu Feng hadn't witnessed it with his own eyes, he would not have dared to kill him. Believe it's true. That's the new star army that dominates the starry sky. It's too exaggerated to be unable to bring Kyle, who is burdensome with them, and the news will undoubtedly cause a huge sensation in the Galaxy Alliance." "Well, let's pretend I didn't say it just now." Tony shrugged. The existence of the Godfather, for him, could not be understood with common sense. After a detailed discussion, everyone put the decision-making power and attention on Kyle, who is the backbone. Kyle pondered for a moment, as if he knew Xingju, and said inexplicably, "Xingju is involved in too many things, it should not be too late. Green Peak, you lead the way." We are now flying the fighter plane to Cayenne prison, after half an hour. In the vast space beyond the Nova, a few light-years away, on a star belt full of broken meteorites, stands an asteroid-sized black-gray steel fortress prison, with aircraft patrolling around from time to time. The Eagle fighter plane in stealth mode approached to the side of the star belt, and stopped far away, looking at the heavily guarded prison fortress from a distance of tens of kilometers. Inside the cockpit, Green Peak turned back and said solemnly, "Master, the fighter plane can't get any closer." "Get any closer, and with the detection technology of the Nova people, we will be found soon." "Understood. You wait here, and Tony and I will check it out." Kyle waved his hand, and Tony, who was wearing a steel battlesuit, immediately followed. The two walked outside the cab to get out of the fighter plane through the rear hatch. "Be safe, boss." Lorna watched their backs. The punk girl who used to be slutty and handsome and fearless, now clasped her hands together and prayed secretly in her heart, no different from a weak woman waiting for her husband to return safely. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392: Sneak into the prison. Kyle and Tony got out of the starfighter and entered the outer space where no creatures could survive. In the harsh environment of extreme cold and anaerobic weightlessness, Kyle wore a slim-fitting spacesuit made of special materials, while Tony wore the same material as the starfighter. All steel suits can move freely in the universe of outer space. Here's a crucial detail. Whether it is Kyle's fusion energy or the gold and red paint dyeing of Tony's suit, it is too ostentatious to appear in the area patrolled by the aircraft, so Kyle did not run the fusion energy flight, only relying on the position to pull himself to fly at a low speed. Tony even simply painted his own steel suit into gray-black, which is a bit of a return to the old version of the original prototype of the suit, and the engine is running at a lower power. Like two small fish entering the sea, in the vast outer space, under the cover of countless broken meteorites in the star belt, they slowly swam towards the giant fortress prison in the distance. It seems that they are not far from the prison, but it took a lot of time for the two of Kyle to actually get there. Kyle put his hands on the hard outer layer of the bottom side of the prison fortress, looked up, and couldn't see the top with his eyesight. The fortress can no longer be described by the size of a mountain peak. It is more like a castle that exists in a dream. Castle in the sky. It's just that this city in the sky, suspended above the star belt, is full of mysterious, treacherous, cold, and bloody dark-style atmosphere. It's really a complete interstellar prison, Tony whispered, talking to Kyle on the side through a small communicator, and said, "Boss, I asked Jarvis to find the entrance." Kyle nodded. In order to ensure the safety of Lorna, he also left Weiss on the starfighter, so that he can be notified as soon as possible in case of an emergency. "Then I'll start." Tony pressed his steel palm against the outer layer of the prison, and circles of translucent light waves spread out, penetrating into the thick outer wall like a test. 3 years of wandering in space, this experience is not something that the Earth can give. Tony's development of steel suits and Krypton gold energy has long been different from what it used to be. His combat power and auxiliary capabilities have been greatly improved, and he has gradually caught up with the galaxy. The technical level of the Alliance's scientific and technological civilization. For example, this light wave sonar is one of them. It can ignore system defenses and silently penetrate into the inner structure of high-tech instruments. Yes, Tony withdrew his hand, waved at Kyle, and flew upward against the wall. Kyle quickly followed, and Tony arrived at a raised steel plate to stop, which looked like a small door for people to pass through, with a card switch on the side, similar to the escape door of a large building on the Earth. "Jarvis, it's up to you." Tony stretched out his arm. The steel arm was slightly deformed, stretched out a miniature mechanical claw, and probed towards the jack of the card switch. After a while, the green light of the portal flickered, and it suddenly opened to the left with a click. Wow! The moment the door was opened, due to the huge contrast between the internal and external pressures, an extremely fast airflow was formed in an instant, gushing out. One of the alien prison guards, wearing protective clothing and holding a laser gun, was obviously patrolling the inner corridor. Those who met were engulfed by the airflow and flew out of it. Not good. Kyle's eyes are quick and his hands are quick, and he subconsciously operates and fuses energy, and glare and flames flicker on his body surface, and the already powerful body of the Protus is greatly enhanced. I saw a flash of lightning speed. One moment it was going out of control, and the next moment, the escape door had been closed again, and the figures of Kyle, Tony, and the prison guards were nowhere to be seen. After catching a few aircraft that were moving and approaching, they wandered around outside the door. After there was nothing abnormal, they spread out again according to the system program. At this time, inside the prison, at the outermost corridor inside the escape door, Kyle let out a sigh of relief. The glare on his body went out and dimmed. His left hand released Tony's shoulder, and his right hand unceremoniously threw the unconscious alien prison guard on the ground. "Godfather, fortunately you are fast enough." Tony was still in shock, and patted the steel chest with a little blue light. At that moment, as a human being, he was unable to respond accordingly. Kyle had already resolved everything safely by relying on the speed of light. "This is just the beginning, be careful," Kyle said to Tony, looked down at the unconscious prison guard, and said to the symbiote attached to the body, "Don't lie down all day, it's time to work, Venom." "Okay, Master," the Venom lazily responded in my mind, and then linear mucus overflowed from Kyle's shoulders, and the liquid turned into sharp tentacles, lifted the prison guard's protective helmet from the neck, and ruthlessly plunged into the cap of the unknown alien creature middle. Tony was obviously used to this, and kept vigilant, scanning the dark and cold steel corridor around him. The tentacles transformed by the venom twitched for a while, forcibly reading information in the opponent's brain tissue, screening out negative and unnecessary memory fragments, simplifying it layer by layer, and then conveying it to Kyle through himself. When the tentacle was retracted into the body, the prison guard lost his life in a brain-dead state. Kyle nodded to Tony and said, "Okay, I already know the architectural infrastructure of this Cayenne prison, the distribution of armed defenses, and the location where criminals are classified and held." Tony thought for a while and said, "With the strength of the two of us, if we attack together, can we forcefully break through to the criminal's cage and bring out the Star-Lord?" "Yes, but there are too many checkpoints from the outside to the inside. Even if Star-Lord is successfully found, the spaceships and ships of the Nova Corps have already surrounded the Cayenne prison outside." Kyle shook his head lightly. "And the outside of the prison fortress is outer space. He has never tried to lead a person to fly at the speed of light in space." "Then I'll go to the control center," Tony continued to ponder. With the assistance of Jarvis, he is good at conquering intrusion databases, and he is accustomed to the cultural route of stealing bases. "Yes. You can go to the control center, and I will pretend to be a prison guard to find the target person. Once I succeed, I will send you a reminder, and you will immediately create chaos. And we will take the opportunity to escape from the prison together." "No problem." After the two discussed it, they did not procrastinate, and immediately started to act. Tony took off the prison guard's protective clothing, put it on his steel coat, and snatched a key and ID card by the way. Without camouflage skills, he could only use the simplest and crudest primitive method. Kyle looked at the body of the prison guard who had been stripped of his underwear. He took off the gloves of his spacesuit. After pointing his white and slender palms to the ground, a hot golden flame fell. The body of the prison guard fell in just half a second. Time, like evaporation into a layer of light dust. Then, Kyle's body continued to swell, grow taller and bigger, and transformed into a prison guard uniform out of thin air. In the blink of an eye, he was exactly the same as the prison guard who had been destroyed before. Chapter 393 Thanos Adopted Daughter. Shanghai Security Prison, the lower-level prison area where prisoners are held. Kyle pretended to be the alien prison guard who killed him, and followed the searched memory, almost unimpeded all the way down, and soon arrived at the place where the prisoners' shouts were faintly heard. As the most important place of detention in the prison, the security has been enhanced several times. Cameras and sirens are installed in every corner, a variety of intelligent aircraft are patrolling the aisles, and there are many more heavily armed alien prison guards. As unguarded and deserted as the outer corridors. When he came to the entrance of the prison area, Kyle saw the other alien prison guards guarding the gate. Without the slightest flinch or nervousness, he walked over as usual, until the two alien prison guards looked over vigilantly, and he kindly looked at the two guards. The person greeted, "Hi, Ruta, Buto. You two are on duty today." "You are." One of the alien prison guards rolled his eyes and looked straight at Kyle. "I'm Leo." Kyle took off his protective helmet, revealing his dark blue and ugly alien face after disguise, with a bald head, and a row of white teeth in a friendly gesture to the prison guards of the same race. The special area of Keene Prison is large, and there are thousands of prison guards inside. However, as a prison guard, he has worked in this job for more than 10 years, and there will be some intersections. Most of them are familiar with each other, which also causes it is difficult for outsiders to sneak into it. But this is a good thing for Kyle, who has a perfect camouflage. "It turned out to be you. Aren't you basically on guard outside? Why did you suddenly come to the inner prison?" Luduo was stunned, and his vigilance immediately collapsed. "No way. The upper management said that the group of guys headed by Xingju are all related to the murderous Ronin, and they need to continue to interrogate. No, they specially sent me to help." Kyle sighed helplessly. With it is really easy to disguise the appearance and memory of prison guards, and even excuses can be impeccable in line with intelligence and facts. This is really hard work for you. Those newcomers are not good birds, and they are very dangerous. You have to be careful. Goen, Buto, the prison guard at the gate, was deeply sympathetic, and kindly reminded him, so he manipulated the switch to open the steel gate. "I will." Kyle waved at them, and walked in naturally. The laser automatically identified the authenticity of the identity, and technology could not see through the camouflage as deep as the genetic level. The area where the prisoners are held is internal, and the building space is much wider. There is a built-in spaceship in the middle, which serves as the central control center of the prison area, and rows of small space capsules around it serve as the restroom for the prisoners. Normally, prisoners move freely in the prison area. Kyle just entered the prison area and saw alien criminals wearing yellow prison uniforms all around, but before he could find the place with the figure of Star-Lord, the lights inside the area suddenly dimmed, and the alarm sounded on the wall. Woo! Kyle thought that his identity had been exposed, but he didn't expect countless intelligent aircraft to ignore him, buzzing and flying over the head, maintaining order and rushing towards the prisoners, opened the equipped armed firearms, and issued a cold voice warning, "Don't move. Otherwise emergency measures will be taken." At the same time, there were many prison guards in the corridor, either holding high-voltage electric shock batons or charging guns, rushing into the prison area one after another with grim faces. Kyle was a little confused for a moment, grabbed the prison guard Ludo who was about to run past him, and asked in surprise, what happened inside. The energy supply battery in the cage area was pulled out by the criminals, and there are few criminals taking the opportunity to make trouble. They should want to escape from prison, so we must stop it quickly. Come with me. After Ludo finished speaking, he pulled Kyle and, together with other prison guards, repressively went deep into the prison area. Prison break. Such a coincidence? While running, Kyle complained in his heart. It was a coincidence that this prison robbery and prison escape could also meet together. In the prison area, where the prisoners are held, a fierce battle is going on at the moment. The most eye-catching thing is a tree spirit who looks like a big tree, standing on two limbs like a human being, tall and straight 3 meters tall. It is located in the center of the field, with palms of dense dry branches spread out on the left and right, easily blocking the hail of bullets from the surrounding guards. Aha! There was a small bear-like creature, riding on the tree man's back, holding a live ammunition gun stolen from the prison guard, and crazily shooting all around indiscriminately. The tree human Groot, and the genetically modified biological rocket, these two are the veterans of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Kyle's eyes lit up, and he finally saw the acquaintance he knew in the original book, and the Star-Lord must not be far from here. Get rid of them quickly, a cold female voice sounded from above. The woman wearing a yellow prison uniform and green skin all over jumped down. She was agile and cold-handed. While still in midair, she cut Ludo and the surroundings with a blade in her hand. There were 2 or 3 prison guards who had just arrived on the scene. The moment the green-skinned woman landed, a small group of prison guards fell down beside her like mowing grass. She held a blood-stained blade, stepped on the floor and bounced like a leopard towards Kyle, who was not far away in disguise as a prison guard. Thanos' adopted daughter, Gamora? This message flashed through Kyle's mind, and the next moment, the tip of the knife was close to his throat, and he could feel the discomfort of the sharp point touching his skin. Although he knew that this ordinary cold weapon and the strength of the opponent could not break through the super protection of the outer layer of the Proteus and Venom, but the body still responded instinctively. Clang. Gamora's eyes widened in astonishment, thinking that he would easily slit the prison guard's throat as before, but the blade was tightly gripped by the other's lightning-like outstretched fingers. Pull hard, the blade does not move. Gamora felt even more horrified, and then looked at the prison guard's face, which was no different from other prison guards. It was an ordinary Lansing Road face, but the prison guard's face was indifferent and calm, with his fingers casually holding the blade, and his dark eyes narrowed slightly, looking at her as if thinking about something. Kyle was indeed thinking about something. A very important thing. To him, Gamora is just an insignificant little person, but looking at the future structure of the original work, Gamora is the most important person Thanos regards, and he is also a key role for Thanos to obtain the Soul Gem enough is infinite, an offering of glove weapons. In this case, why not remove this key person? Kyle just flashed this idea for a moment, and murderous intent suddenly appeared in his eyes, and even his aura completely changed. Gamora's face was extremely pale, and without any thought of confrontation, she suddenly let go of the hilt of her sword, turned around decisively, and ran towards the tree figure Groot as if fleeing for her life. The prison guard's feeling of being calm, unpredictable, and seeing creatures as ants and dust is so similar to her adoptive father, Thanos, that it makes her soul tremble and her spine feel chills. Goosebumps all over my body. Escape. If you can't escape, you will die. Chapter 394 Kyle vs. Guardians of the Galaxy. Kyle pinched the tip of the small knife with 2 fingers, and looked at Gamora who was fleeing in a hurry. From the first time he saw the murderous intent, it was only a momentary thought. Now that he has an idea, there is nothing to hesitate, he will put it into action in the next moment. The body ignited a certain switch, and dots of glare energy emerged from Kyle's fingers. The fingers were pinched, and the alloy sword blade suddenly burst from the tip of the knife. The crack extended and branched, and quickly spread all over the blade. "There is a faint light in it. Go." Kyle spit out calm words, and the blade exploded, turning into countless small sharp fragments, with shimmering light, piercing the air sharply, like a hidden weapon, blazing toward the person who had escaped 10 meters away. Gamora's back. Gamora was still running desperately, but suddenly there was a chill behind her. Her rich combat experience gave her a very terrifying illusion. No matter if she continued to sprint forward, roll tactically, or dodge left and right, she couldn't avoid the man behind her's attack. The lasing fragments have blocked all her way of life, like a scimitar held by the god of death on her neck. There is no way to resist or escape anyway. It's over. Gamora's mind went blank, and this thought finally flashed through, and she saw the genetic creature rocket in front of her waving at her, and then felt her waist tighten, and she was suddenly pulled, and quickly approached the rocket, followed by dense and thick. The branches of the trees formed an umbrella shape, quickly covering the fragile bodies of the two. Chi. The alloy fragments are like a strengthened version of Gatling bullets, piercing the tall, broad and tough tree body intersieve. Some wounds can directly see the scene behind from the front, and they are nailed into the steel inner wall at an unabated speed. Oh? He was actually saved. Should he be said to be the strongest assistant in the future Guardians of the Galaxy? Kyle whispered in surprise, looking at Groot, the tree figure who protected Gamora and Rocket and became riddled with holes. Groot slowly raised his withered arms, revealing the two Gamoras in his arms. Rocket was holding a gun, swallowing wildly, and guarded Kyle, who was more than 10 meters away, in fear. "My God, what happened just now? What? It's the first time I've seen Groot get such a serious injury." Groot muttered words that sounded similar to his own name, comforting Rocket, saying that he was fine. Compared with other creatures, the many fatal wounds on his body were sprouting and visible to the naked eye. Speed heals. "It's dangerous, it's really dangerous." Gamora was still in shock, clapping his hands on his violently heaving chest, and said solemnly to the Rocket beside him, "Be careful, that prison guard is different from other ordinary prison guards. He's strong, he's outrageously strong. You don't need to tell me, I know too." "Groot, let's do it together." Rocket said something quickly, raised his gun with both hands, and aimed at Kyle with a fierce shot. Kyle did not see any movements, the appearance of the prison guard in disguise, the blurred changes of light and shadow, the black line liquid gushed and swelled, covering the whole body and shaping it into a slim dark battlesuit. Jingle jingle. The alloy bullets that fell on Kyle's body bounced all the way, and the bullets fell to the ground with a series of crisp sounds. Kyle stepped forward, but his limbs were bound by the oncoming tree vines. It is also the masterpiece of the tree man Groot. Its hands are forked into 4 tough tree vines, coupled with superhuman strength. Its binding ability is far stronger than high-tech iron chains. Seeing that hot weapons and firearms were ineffective against Kyle, Rocket showed an unimaginable shock. After Kyle's limbs were bound by vines, he sighed softly and said, "Give up, bound by Groot? There are no creatures you can break free, is it?" Kyle smiled lightly. He didn't use Vulcan's divine power and fusion energy, but simply extracted the strength of his body muscles. He lifted his feet firmly bound by the vines, and with the vines making a small intense sound, he moved forward. Take a peaceful step. There's a first step. Soon, the second step, the third step. Kyle ignored the constraints of the vines and walked towards Gamora more and more naturally. Don't be lazy, do your best, Groot. Rocket was sweating profusely, and patted the old man's head. It wasn't until Gamora pointed to the ground that Rocket was shocked to find out that Groot even the feet were deeply buried in the floor, and the dense tree roots even cracked the steel. Groot obviously tried his best, but he still couldn't stop the man in front of him. Damn. Gamora, his target is you, run away. Rocket looked at Kyle who was getting closer, and couldn't help but shouted at Gamora. What about you? Gamora clenched his fists. You think I'm thinking, we've only known each other for 2 days, and now we're working hard for you. But at the moment, Groot can't escape, so I can only stay. Rocket gritted his teeth and began to load the gun and ammunition. Then I'll stay too. It wasn't you guys just now, I would have died a long time ago. Gamora took a deep breath and shook her dark red hair. The group is really wiped out now. Rocket smiled wryly again and again. Seeing that Kyle was approaching 5 meters, Rocket and others were about to fight to the death. A brown-skinned bald man with a naked upper body full of tattoos rushed forward from Kyle's back, using his strong hands to give his arms hold on tight. "Dex the Destroyer," Rocket yelled in surprise. Gamora was extremely surprised. A few days ago, because of his hatred for Ronan, the Destroyer wanted to kill her to pay for his wife and children, but he didn't expect to be on their side at this moment. "Don't think too much, I'm not trying to help you, it's just that if you are dead, there will be fewer people who dare to oppose Ronan." Dex let out a low growl, exerting all his strength, the veins on his forehead bulging, and pulling Kyle back hard. Growth the Treeman and Dex the Destroyer, the two exerted their strength in tandem, finally causing Kyle to stop his movements. "Is it almost ready?" Kyle's face was calm. "Looking at it this way, almost all the members of the future Guardians of the Galaxy are here, except for Star-Lord. In this case, should Gamora be erased, or is it all there?" Kyle was thinking about it, and Dex, who was panting heavily on his back, suddenly provocatively said, "How about it? Are you out of strength?" "Boy." The hall suddenly fell silent. Rocket and Gamora looked at each other, their eyes widened, and they wanted to be rude in their hearts. "Why did you provoke him?" They realized just now that Kyle's killing intent was pure but not strong. Just like an idea that he wants to do now, but maybe he will give up in the next second. "And now? Then let you see the real power." The corners of Kyle's mouth raised, his dark pupils turned to Suijin, and a layer of golden flames burned up on his body. The moment the golden flame appeared, the temperature in the prison area soared, and Grodd and Dex let out extremely tragic wailing sounds one after another. Chapter 395. Bottom of Kayan Prison, Cell Area. The Destroyer, who is listed as a fighting race with thick skin and strong strength, completely released Kyle's arms and back at this time, curled up and fell to the ground convulsively, his mouth continuously gasping for air sound. On his bare and strong chest, there was a scorched black mark, as if it had been grilled fiercely on the fire for a while, and there was a faint smell of meat. On the other side, the tree figure Grodd kept backing away, wailing in the pronunciation of Grodd, and the tree vines formed from his arms also let go of Kyle, with burning golden flames attached to them. Despite vigorously swinging in the air, or lashing against the steel floor, the flames on the tree vines still showed no signs of extinguishing. Instead, they extended toward the tree man's body more vigorously. "Grodd! Cheer up, Grodd." The rocket was on Grodd's shoulder, shaking violently with the tree body. It looked anxiously at Gamora beside it. "Hurry up and find a way to save it. You don't need to tell me, I know it too." Gamora took a deep breath, and suddenly jumped forward from Grodd's shoulder, and took out a brand new blade from each back, facing the fire tree vine. The center violently swung down. Laugh. The 4 vines that were on fire broke off and fell to the ground. They were soon covered by golden flames, and quickly burned into a layer of black ash. Grodd retreated to the corner of the wall. The remaining vine arms were emitting green smoke, and he looked at Kyle, who had returned to his original human appearance, with great fear. At this time, Kyle was wearing a dark Venom battlesuit, with faint golden flames lingering all over his body, and his silver hair turned into wisps of flames, burning on end, and his whole body was filled with palpitating divine oppression. In the past 3 years of wandering in the universe, Venom naturally did not gain flame resistance, but Kyle's control over the divine power of the fire system was more subtle, and he was able to output the flames exerted by the divine power through the battlesuit. Of course, if the divine power is fully activated, Kyle will completely turn into pyroman. Even the blood in his body will boil at high temperature, and the venom still cannot symbiotically attach to him. However, the flame itself restrains the turns, and the destroyer is more resistant to physical attacks. The two have no means of defense and resistance against the divine flame, which is as light as 1,000 degrees Celsius, and there is no need to achieve full power. Gamora. Kyle stared at Gamora, approaching him step by step with divine flames. Gamora's face turned pale, she bit her lip, and tightly clenched a blade in her hand. Under the approaching scorching heat, sweat kept slipping from her chin, her eyes fixed on Kyle, and she didn't move a single bit. There is no need to escape. The huge disparity in strength makes escape a luxury. Gamora, run! Rocket stood on Grodd's head, pulled the trigger, and fired a series of bullets at Kyle with a roar, but this time, there was no chance of rebounding. The bullet reached the lingering flames on Kyle's body, and immediately melted into crimson molten iron with a sizzling sound. "You can't die now. If you want to die, you will die by my hands, you Ronin lackey," Dex said, a thick man with a hint of arrogance, with one hand covering his chest with burns. He propped himself up on the floor with one hand and struggled slowly to get up. "You don't need to say more," Gamora smiled in relief, and facing Kyle, who came to the front, she simply threw away the blade in her hand, and said in a slow voice of resignation, "Are you coming after me? I can give you my life, but please let the others go." "Oh," Kyle rubbed his chin, as if he was really considering this proposal, and the golden flame on his body flickered a little dimly. Gamora, Rocket, Groot, and Dex couldn't help showing sadness on their faces. "No, we must not let them go." At the passageway behind everyone, another team of armed prison guards arrived. After hearing the words of the conversation, the chief prison guard who led the team said anxiously, "It's not for the sake of your talking." Kyle frowned slightly, and slapped his palms back. The raging flames rushed out like a wave, engulfing all the prison guards behind him, including people with guns. Hearing the tragic wailing of a large number of prison guards before they died, Gamora and the others all changed color, and they really couldn't figure out the origin and intention of the mysterious man in front of them. "Okay, I promise you. You die, and the others leave." Kyle nodded, and Gamora closed his eyes gently as if relieved from a heavy burden. His tragic past flashed through his mind, and the shouts of Rocket and others beside him could no longer be heard clearly. "Don't worry, I'll strike quickly, and you will die without any pain." Kyle stretched out two fingers, forming a sword shape, with the golden flames rising from his fingertips, pointing at Gamora's unsuspecting forehead. Before the fingertips fell completely, there were burn marks between Gamora's brows. Seeing that Kyle's fingers were about to pierce his forehead, at the very moment, a calm male voice sounded hastily, "Stop." Kyle's fingers hovered between the eyebrows, the flames were almost extinguished, and dark green blood flowed down across Gamora's peaceful face. Everyone looked up, and saw a human man in his early 30s, armed with clothing made up of various technological products, carrying a bulging backpack, and holding a robotic metal prosthesis, standing panting in the corridor on the second floor of the prison superior. "Star-Lord Quill, the Guardians of the Galaxy are really full now." Kyle looked at the visitor and thought secretly. "Kiel, where have you been running for so long?" Rocket yelled in surprise. "Take the prosthesis you want, and my backpack equipment." After Quill finished speaking to Rocket, he jumped off the second floor and said solemnly to Kyle, "Everything is negotiable. Who are you and why did you have to kill Gamora?" "I don't need a reason to kill people. If I really want a reason, I can only say that her life is not good, and she has something to do with that person in the Titan star field," Kyle said lightly. "In addition, my name is Kyle, and I come from Earth, Titan. Do you know Thanos?" Gamora's eyes widened in surprise. Quill's reaction was even more exaggerated. He blinked, looked Kyle up and down, and said excitedly, "I am also from the Earth, fellow." "Wait, the name Kyle, I seem to have seen it somewhere." Kyle. Quill muttered a few words, his body trembled, and he blurted out, "The symbol of peace, Major General Kyle." "No way, is it really the deity, Quill? Do you know him?" Rocket and others were a little confused. This reversal was too exciting. "Of course I know him. No, it should be said that everyone on Earth knows him. He is a legendary hero in our place." Quill was very excited. He was taken away from the Earth by Star Hunter Yondu when he was a child in the 80s. Of course, he is very familiar with Kyle, who became a hero in World War II. "As human beings, why are you so different?" The Rockets were speechless, and the others deeply recognized it. After all, Kyle's combat power made them feel powerless and frightened. Chapter 396 Change your mindset and take the initiative. Despite the episode of Star-Lord's appearance, the tense atmosphere in the prison still hasn't eased much. Mr. Kyle, Star-Lord Quill looked at Gamora, then at Kyle, and asked in a deep voice, "Do you have to kill Gamora? You must not be on Ronan's side." Someone from the Titan Galaxy said it was because of someone in the Titan Galaxy. Was it for revenge or bounty, or something else? Kyle was silent. "Explain. How can this be explained clearly? Could it be that he came from another world, knowing that in the future, Thanos will collect 6 infinite gems after he makes the Infinity Gauntlet, and Gamora is the only sacrifice for Thanos to get the Soul Gem, the most important thing in sacrifice. Once Thanos gathers enough 6 gems, a snap of the Infinity Gauntlet will wipe out more than half of the lives in the entire Nine Realms universe." Gamora smiled miserably, and said, "The Titan Galaxy. It is the place where I grew up, and it is also where I endured humiliation and suffered a lot. The man he mentioned should refer to my adoptive father, Thanos." "Thanos, Everyone was taken aback. This name seemed to have a suffocating magic and oppression. That's right, Kyle nodded, looked at Gamora, and said, Gamora. I know, you have information about the location of something, and that is a secret that you will hide from Thanos even if you die. If it is captured by Thanos, this cosmic galaxy will fall into cruel catastrophe. Gamora looked at Kyle in disbelief as if struck by lightning. How did you know that? Kyle said lightly. Not only that, I also know the purpose of Thanos. Now you understand. Your existence will indirectly help Thanos. Therefore, it is better to let you leave this world forever here gone. Gamora's face was pale. She bowed her head in silence, but was persuaded to nod her head. Yes, you are right. If my sacrifice can successfully stop that man's behavior, then everything will be worth it. From the appearance of the name of Titan Thanos to Gamora's willingness to die, Rocket and others were all confused. They always felt that what Kyle and Gamora were thinking about was far more complicated and serious than that of Gamora beyond their imagination. I understand. Quill crossed his arms, with full confidence on his face, which made Dex the Destroyer, who was still lying on the ground, burst out laughing. Only you, what can you understand? Hear me out. Quill snorted softly, and said to Gamora, you know the whereabouts of something, and your adoptive father must not let your adoptive father find out about that thing, otherwise the consequences will be serious. Isn't it? Gamora nodded. Quill turned sideways and said to Kyle, Mr. Kyle, you don't want Thanos to get that thing, so you want to kill Gamora who knows the secret. Right, almost. Kyle shrugged. That's fine. Quill clasped his palms together, and proposed in a non-stop manner, as long as Gamora leads the way, we'll take the thing out and hand it over to Mr. Kyle for safekeeping. That's fine. Mr. Kyle, we have all seen your strength. Is it weaker than the so-called Thanos? Are you afraid that things will be snatched by him? Gamora was stunned. She never thought of getting the gem by herself, because even if she got it, she would just find a place to keep hiding it, so as not to let her foster father Thanos get it. Kyle was also slightly stunned. His mind suddenly enlightened, and he felt that he had been a little cornered before. Maybe it's because he just crossed over after watching the Avengers, Kyle has been afraid of the existence of Thanos in his heart, afraid of the snap of his fingers, so that he never considered collecting gems by himself. Now being reminded by Quill, Carlton suddenly changed his mind. First of all, Thanos is not invincible. Before Thanos was made into an infinite glove, he was just an ordinary high-dimensional life. Without the blessing of the 6 gemstones, his combat power was not much stronger than that of the Protoss. Now, Kyle has the divine power of the Protoss fire system, adult venom, artificial intelligence thinking, and fusion energy that manipulates light energy. etc. The talents cultivated are not inferior to the forces of the Titans. Why can't they collect 6 gems in advance, stand at the top and wait for Thanos to come and give away their heads? It's better to take the initiative to attack than to sit and wait, Kyle muttered to himself. The broken golden pupils became brighter and brighter, and they seemed to rekindle their fighting spirit. Gamora looked around at everyone, and said coldly, if we look for that thing, we will be completely on the opposite side of Thanos. Let me remind you that even Ronan wants to please Thanos. Are you mentally prepared to fight against that man? Rocket and others looked at each other. Before speaking, Kyle chuckled and said, you have already got one of them. There is no way out. What does this mean? Everyone's faces changed drastically, and Gamora stared at Kyle, waiting for his answer. Kiel. Do you still have the cosmic spirit ball? Kyle directly reached out to Quill to ask for it. Of course it is. I finally got it. Ronan's subordinates and Gamora all wanted to fight for it. If it wasn't for it, I wouldn't have come to this ghostly place. Gamora said, this thing it's very valuable, Quill said, reaching into his backpack, rummaging through it for a while, and throwing a golf ball-sized embroidered silver ball at Kyle. Be careful. Kyle solemnly caught the cosmic spirit ball, pressed a few fingers on the shell, felt the indestructible hardness, and held his breath to mobilize the fusion energy to cover the palm. Dazzling light flowed, his fingers exerted sudden force, and crushed the cosmic spirit ball in front of everyone. Wow, 50 billion, Quill, Rocket, and Gamora, who were short of money, couldn't help but feel pain in their hearts when they saw this scene, but they soon became speechless. I saw that after the cosmic spirit ball shattered, there was still a crystal nucleus inside, crystal clear like a gemstone, held by Kyle in his left hand, and circles of purple halos continuously glowed outward, overflowing with a destructive and terrifying aura. Filled the whole prison. Kyle's face was calm, and he held the purple gem firmly in his hand. The fusion energy was surprisingly effective, suppressing its leaking coercion and dazzling light. Gamora stared blankly at Kyle's left hand, and whispered to himself, "So that's the case. No wonder Thanos asked Ronin to hand him the cosmic spirit orb." "What the hell is that?" Quill asked Rocket and others' doubts. "It's something that Gamora desperately wants to hide, but there are 6 of these similar items in the universe. I'll tell you about the rest after I get out of prison." Holding the purple gemstone in his hand, Kyle ordered to the electronic watch he was wearing, "Weiss, inform Tony that we are going to break out now." "Yes, Master." After Weiss took the order, he immediately sent out radio waves to get in touch with Jarvis on Tony's body at the upper level of the prison. Kyle walked away from Gamora, turned to Quill and said, "Take your people and follow me. I will take you out of here first, and it will not be too late to find a safe place to explain." "Listen to him." Quill gave everyone a look. Rocket sighed lightly, patted Groot on the shoulder. Groot stepped forward knowingly, and Karadexa was burned and fell to the ground on his back. Everyone followed Kyle and broke through to the outer layer of the prison where the interstellar spacecraft was parked. Chapter 397 from Ronin and number 039, S Pursuit. Emergency alarm. Emergency alarm. There are several criminals who are trying to escape from the prison. The prison guards are requested to go to the prison B area to forcibly stop them. Any armed and emergency means can be used. Emergency alert. The center of the prison control system has been invaded. The prison guards are requested to immediately go to the high-level central area A for reinforcements. The interior of Keene prison was in chaos. The prison guards were busy running around under the intelligent alarm, like ants in a pot, running back and forth on both sides of the upper and lower floors, completely unable to figure out the enemy's actions and traces. As a last resort, the prison guards contacted the Nova Corps for help. This is the Cayenne High Security Prison, and there is an emergency that requires the Nova Corps to come for reinforcements. Please reply as soon as you hear it. At this time an orange-blue starfighter, shining with gray and silver luster, ignited and started from the parking area of the prison, accelerated away from the Cayenne prison, and fled along the Star Belt meteorite outside at a high speed. Thor took off the steel mask, looked at the Quill sitting on the seats, and asked in surprise, "Godfather, why did you bring so many people with you? Didn't you come to find Xingju?" "It's a long story," Kyle said softly. The glare on his left arm suddenly dimmed, and when he opened his palm again, the purple gemstone he was holding in his hand completely disappeared at the same time. An item card entered the card space, climbed to the top at the fastest speed, glowing circles of dazzling crystal light. Power gem, an infinite gem that masters the mysteries of power. Rare colorless item card. This gem possesses endless power mysteries, which can infinitely enhance the user's physique and strength, instantly copy all physical superpowers, and make the user's own physical attack and defense capabilities close to invincible. It can absorb and release the enemy's energy attack, and can release a huge purple energy shock wave, completely destroying the fighter and spaceship, and even blasting the asteroid into pieces. Warning: the user needs extremely powerful power to control it, otherwise he will kill himself and get lost in the powerful power. Current status: can be summoned as an entity power gem. This is the second infinity gem that Kyle got after getting in touch with the space gem. The practicality and power of this gem is, to some extent, absolutely crushed by the space gem. Of course, it requires the equipment requirements of the user's physique, which should be much higher. Despite having the Proteus gene and fusion energy, Kyle is still not arrogant enough to try to control the power gem through his body alone. After all, as strong as Thanos, he also made the Infinity Gauntlet that specifically controls gems, and then launched a crazy operation to plunder infinite gems in the universe. Maybe I should create an equipment item similar to the Infinity Gauntlet that can control infinity gems, Kyle thought to himself, quickly put it behind him, returned to the current reality, and briefly explained the origin and use of the infinite gems to everyone. Under the premise of having the Infinity Gauntlet, once all 6 gems are gathered together in one snap of the fingers, more than half of the life in the universe will be reduced to ashes. When Kyle said this, everyone except Gamora changed color. Destroying more than half of the lives, this insane act, probably no one would do it, Quill comforted pretendingly. Yes, Rocket nodded in agreement. No, you are wrong. Gamora's face was very ugly, and he said bitterly, my adoptive father, Thanos is what he is after. I knew 10 years ago that he was looking for a family of dwarves, and he tried every means to make infinite loves and cultivate power. Find the whereabouts of the Infinity Stones. This is too crazy. Everyone was silent, digesting this shocking and important news. Gamora seemed to wake up, and continued, since the power gem is the cosmic spirit orb, Thanos will never let go of everyone who is related to it, and Ronan is also obsessed with the legend and power of the gem. Ronan, He came to find me, I wish for it. Dex, who was lying on the chair, clenched his fists and said coldly. Don't do anything, just take the other gem, and see how Thanos can make up 6 gems. After all, we have Mr. Kyle, a super combat power. Quail patted Kyle on the shoulder familiarly, and almost took out his notebook to ask for his autograph. I dare not say that Thanos can win, but Ronan, I haven't put it in my eyes yet. Kyle's calm words inexplicably made people feel a solid sense of security. Hey, sir, you've been looking at me since just now, Quill suddenly screamed, pointing at Tony who was still wearing the steel suit. Everyone else looked at Tony indeed. Tony was still staring at Quill closely, never leaving his eyes, with eagerness and anticipation in his eyes. To be honest, although I have slept with women of many races, I am not good at men. Quill spread his hands and shrank his neck back. You are Star-Lord. I only like beautiful beauties of ordinary humans, bastard, Tony said angrily. Kyle smiled and said bluntly, Kiel, to tell you the truth, we came to Kyan prison for you alone, aiming at me? Why? Quill asked confused. Tony took a few steps forward, raised the steel arm of his left hand, and light was emitted from it, presenting Howard's photos and files on the holographic projection. I want to find out his whereabouts. The intermediary said, a few years ago, you once saw him on some planet, Howard Stark. Quill stared at the projection, touched his chin, thought for a moment, and said as if he quickly remembered, I have an impression. By the way, in the slums of Nanki, there is an old human named Howard. He is well known locally as a repair master, and I have repaired technological equipment there. That's right. Tony and Kyle glanced at each other with excitement on each other's faces. Then have you met these two? Kyle gestured to Tony, and Tony released the photos and files of Lucy and Logan knowingly, but this time Quill looked at them for a long time, and finally shook his head and said, I have never seen such a beautiful human woman. If once I saw it, I will never forget it. Kyle frowned, which meant that Howard and Lucy were separated, or that something happened to Lucy and the others. I hope they were okay, otherwise. Kyle's eyes sharpened, and a cold murderous intent and evil spirit rose from his body, and Quill and the others stepped back a few steps in shock. Godfather, they must be fine, Tony said with his hand on Kyle's shoulder. Hope so. Kyle restrained his emotions, and said to Quill, now, take us to the Nanki Star first, and find Howard. Before the words were finished, the fighter plane trembled violently, and Jarvis on Tony issued an early warning. There are fighter planes from the Nova Corps chasing us in the rear, then join up with the Eagle fighter that Lorna is in front of. Kyle gave a decisive order. Jarvis said, Weiss just contacted me. They were chased by a large number of unknown spaceships ahead. The preliminary judgment is that they are Ronan's subordinates. Everyone's faces turned pale when they heard it. It is true that there are wolves in the front and tigers in the back, and it is not a problem to escape there. Chapter 398 Take the initiative to attack Ronan. On the starfighter belonging to Star-Lord. Godfather, what should we do now? Should we attack, or continue to flee? Tony's face was solemn, and he handed over the choice to Kyle, who has the backbone. Quill and the others also focused their attention on Kyle. They naturally knew the strength of this man, but what they suffered now was the front and back of the two most powerful forces in the Galactic Alliance, the Nova Corps and the Ronan fleet. Surround clip. Kyle fails silent escape? Fleeing there, even if he could escape by himself, there are too many people on the two starfighters, and it is impossible for him to get out of the fighters and take them all away. This is a battle of trapped beasts. In the end, the people in the two starfighters, except for him, may all die. It is impossible to take such a big risk. By the way, Kyle seemed to have an idea, and ordered to Tony, let Jarvis change the course of the fighter plane. Let's return to the direction of the prison, and notify Weese's fighter plane to keep up with our fighter plane. I just escaped, and now I'm going back. Everyone was a little confused when they heard the words. Kiel, I need your help. Kyle narrowed his eyes. Mr. Kyle, tell me. Quill nodded. In the current situation, everyone is sitting in the same boat, so there is no difference between them. Kyle thought about it. Help me find a way. Contact the Nova Corps here, or the person in charge of the Nova High Level, and say that the person who robbed the prison was the human criminal in Liberty Square yesterday. and now they have a deal that they can't refuse. Trade talks. This, Quill was a little bit bitter, and the brown bear Rocket next to him, with his arms akimbo, glanced at him contemptuously, and said, "Leave this to me." I'm sure. Under Kyle's command, the two interstellar warplanes under attack suddenly adjusted their direction and flew towards Cayenne Prison one after the other. At the same time, the Nova Corps and the Ronin fleet also received corresponding feedback messages. Report, sir. The warplane that the criminal escaped from prison turned back, followed by another starfighter, flying in the direction of our spaceship fighter plane, and they even sent a contact request. All Nova Corps stop, put on high alert, and see what these criminals want to do. This is the online channel of the Nova Corps spacecraft. After the Nova officer gave an order, thousands of fighter planes shining with golden lights hovered on the star belt, waiting for the two starfighters to enter the Tiger's mouth the other side. Report, sir. The target starfighter is approaching Cayenne Prison, and further ahead is the space jurisdiction of the Nova Corps. Will we continue to pursue it? Stop where you are first. Don't move forward rashly. I will report to Ronin first and ask for his decision. This is the online channel of Ronin's ships. The jet black spaceships of the same size are suspended in the lonely outer space, looking at the Cayenne Prison thousands of kilometers away through the star belt. The relationship between the Nova Corps and Ronin's forces has long been in dire straits, but today is the first time the two sides have confronted each other across the air. Once it is not handled properly, it will be the beginning of a vast interstellar war, the pros and cons of which can be known by any intelligent creature. The two starfighters approached the Nova Corps spacecraft, suspended on the star belt, and the cabins began to dock into one. Inside the starfighter, Lorna, Green Peak, and the others just arrived at the cockpit of Kyle's fighter plane, and saw a genetic creature that was similar to Babo but completely different, picked up the communicator, and said to Kyle, "Successful. Yes, the senior executives of Nova are willing to have a video chat with you." Kyle knew that Nova would probably not refuse, so he was already sitting in his seat, and nodded towards Rocket. "Turn on the meeting video." Rocket manipulated the button, pointed the camera at Kyle, and a projection screen opened. In the center of the screen was a white-haired female Nova with a dignified appearance, and behind him stood several uniformed men who were obviously Nova officers. "Let me introduce myself. I am the representative Prime Minister of Xinxing," the female Xinxing said with a smile on her face. "My name is Kyle, and I come from Earth." As soon as Kyle finished speaking, Prime Minister Nova looked at him in surprise, and said in disbelief, "Earth, human, not only the cognition of the Nova people, in the concept of the entire civilization race of the Galactic Federation, the Earth is only in a remote and backward civilization area, and human beings are not fully civilized indigenous people. Is this what you want to see?" Kyle smiled faintly, snapped his fingers lightly, and the fusion energy glowed, flashing like a colorful streamer between his fingers. The new star Prime Minister showed a little more respect on his face, and smiled. "I believe that there must be some misunderstanding between Mr. Kyle and our new star. What kind of cooperation are you referring to? Let's talk about it now." "Smart." Kyle smiled, and said straight to the point, "I know that your planet is hostile to Ronin. Unfortunately, we are too. So what I mean by cooperation is that I will solve Ronin." Prime Minister Xinxing trembled, but before he said anything, several officers from Xinxing behind him showed shocked expressions. In this galactic alliance, not many people dare to challenge Ronin, let alone deal with him alone. But the man in front of him smashed the defense network formed by the fighter planes of the Nova Corps not long ago. Maybe this possibility really exists. Prime Minister Nova stared directly at Kyle, and said in a deep voice, "This deal is too big. What do we Nova need to pay? It's very simple." Kyle raised his left hand and waved towards Quill and the others next to him. "I have a few friends who are registered criminals in Cayenne Prison. I hope you will clear their records and protect them as important VIPs. The rest, I can do it by myself. That's all." Prime Minister Xinxing was deeply moved by surprise. Kyle nodded slightly. He had judged a long time ago that the people on his side had no deep conflicts with Nova, and a purely wanted warrant could be completely resolved. Prime Minister Nova nodded and said, "No problem, I promise you. Before you come back, your friends will be Nova VIPs. Stay with me and be protected by all Nova Corps. Then please, I hope they are all unscathed before I come back, otherwise Nova will suffer my wrath." Kyle finished speaking calmly, and hung up the video conversation directly. Not long after, the Nova Corps fighter jets on alert took the initiative to contact the starfighter Kyle was in. The Nova officer's attitude improved 180 degrees. And he respectfully invited the two starfighter jets to the Nova Imperial capital as guests. Tony, take care of Lorna. Quill, take care of your team. Don't worry, just wait for me to come back. After Kyle explained the matter separately, he took Weezy to the safety door of the rear cabin of the fighter plane. Boss, you must be careful, Lorna said worriedly. Don't worry, I never do anything I'm not sure about, Kyle said confidently, closed the gate, and opened the back cabin door. The body was exposed to the strong wind and cold of outer space, and Kyle subconsciously operated infused energy, and there were extremely dazzling and scorching glare lights lingering on his body. I am leaving. Kyle's body's surface was shrouded in fusion energy, and his whole body turned into a stream of light, smashing the Star Belt meteorite along the way, like a meteor's breakaway fighter jet blasting towards the Ronin ship in the distance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399 One-Person vs. Starship Fleet. The Commander-in-Chief of the Carey Fleet, outside the Cayenne prison, fully conveyed the current situation to Queen Ronin, who was on Carey Star. Roninson replied coldly and domineeringly, "Push forward the spaceship and force the Nova Legion to hand over the Cosmic Spirit Orb, otherwise they will face the wrath of the Kree and a war that will sweep across the galaxy." Yes, the commander of the ship took the order, and just hung up the video contact with Ronin here, and before he gave the advance command, the Vanguard ship suddenly fed back an intelligence message. "Sir, our radar has detected an unidentified flying object, which is heading towards us." Flying at extreme speed, the commander said coldly, "Dare to get close to our Carey spaceship and ship. Do you still need me to give orders? Push forward, fire the cannon, and blast the flying object into space dust. Understand?" Hundreds of pitch-black and icy interstellar ships, with their engines rumbling and firing, this army, large enough to flatten a planetary civilization, pushed forward in darkness. An interstellar missile as big as a fighter jet was launched. On the other side of the target, at the end there is an extremely dazzling star point, which is approaching the interstellar ship at a speed close to the speed of light. It was Kyle himself. This was his first time flying at the speed of light in outer space. He only felt a thought, and the star belts and planets on both sides of his body were rapidly and blurred backwards. Kyle, surrounded by glare, looks forward, and his vision after strengthening can extend thousands of kilometers away, and he can clearly see the interstellar missiles coming here and the interstellar ships behind. "Let's try it with you first." Kyle held his breath, running the fusion energy to its peak, with a bright splendor attached to his palms, and he shot towards the interstellar missile without avoiding it. Boom! A series of unprecedented explosions suddenly erupted in the silently pitch-black outer space, covering an area of hundreds of kilometers, and the flames ignited a small corner of the galaxy universe. "This is the fate of provoking us Kree people." The commander stood in the command room of the giant starship, through the French windows made of transparent material, admiring the extremely spectacular explosion cloud with a sneer. But suddenly, from the explosion group, a bit of dazzling starlight rushed out of it at a high speed, and continued to approach the interstellar ship without any hesitation. "What is that?" The commander was stunned. In the command communication channel, the feedback message from the forward investigators sounded anxiously, Sir, the UFO is still approaching. After passing the detection, there are signs of life. It is a humanoid organism." "What did you say?" The commander's eyes widened in surprise. Living organisms, flying in outer space, still carried the indiscriminate bombing of interstellar missiles? The commander didn't have time to think about it. The star point like a cursor was already approaching the front of the fleet, and there was no tendency to stop, but drag the tail flame, and the accelerated and directly hit the Vanguard battleship. Boom! The fusion energy touched the battleship slightly, and the steel deck was instantly pierced and melted. The streamer entered from the cockpit of the battleship's head, penetrated layers of steel plates, and finally rushed out from the engine behind the battleship. The terrified sounds of the Carey guard sounded inside the battleship. Before seeing the true face of the enemy, the battleship exploded into a ball of fire after a violent tremor, and countless parts and alien corpses flew out of it. The colorful streamer raised up, and Kyle stopped above the battleship group, looking down coldly. His eyes seemed to pass through countless battleships, and fell on the commander on the extra-large spaceship. Seeing this, the commander couldn't help roaring, "Damn it, fight back! Blast him into pieces!" Hundreds of interstellar ships immediately locked their targets on Kyle, and raised their muzzles in unison. This is like a scene where a high-pressure cannon hits a mosquito, which is strange and spectacular and shocking. It came just right. Kyle smiled coldly, leaned over and flew down, raised his hand, and blasted a fusion energy hand cannon, and saw a scorching beam of light passing through the space, and an interstellar missile exploded on the spot as soon as it came out of the muzzle, affecting everyone. Several surrounding warships were severely damaged and sunk. Kyle seemed to be dissatisfied with this efficiency, so he simply accelerated his flight, held the interstellar missile flying towards him with both hands, blocked it with his bare hands, and pushed the interstellar missile to fly to the dense interstellar ship group, and countless ship pilots manipulated the spaceship away from it in horror. For a moment, it was as if a tiger fell into a flock. Kyle was the only wolf, and the starship was the one-sided flock for the rest of the time. Kyle fully demonstrated the superhuman power of fusion energy, the flying speed of light speed, and the energy protection layer that ignores the bombing of interstellar missiles, so that he is not afraid of the large-scale interstellar fleet, and the amazingly powerful fusion energy allows him to give interstellar ships and a catastrophic fatal blow to the spaceship this day. The aliens in Keen Prison and Nova can be seen looking up. It seems that there are salutes in the sky, and the gorgeous fireworks are going on endlessly. Few people know that the lighting of each firework represents the explosion and destruction of an interstellar ship. Devil, he is a star demon. The ship channel of the Carry Stars has been calling for help and screaming since Kyle launched the offensive. The commander on the spaceship at the rear looked at the starry sky of shipwrecks and corpses in front of him. His body began to tremble, and finally he couldn't help but gave an order to retreat. The fact that the Carry starships want to retreat doesn't mean Kyle will let it go. Just after dismantling a ship with fusion energy, Kyle looked up and saw that most of the surviving ships began to speed up and evacuate backwards. He couldn't help squinting his eyes and locked on the extra-large interstellar spaceship mixed in it. "Want to run?" Kyle smiled, accelerated abruptly, turned into a streamer, ignored those ordinary ships, and approached the interstellar spaceship suspected of being the command center. Diddy, alert alert, hostile targets are approaching. When the commander heard the alarm from the starship's protection system, his expression changed drastically. He turned and looked out the window, only to see a stream of light hit the outer shell of the starship. The interstellar spaceship trembled slightly. Kyle did not penetrate the shell of the spaceship deck this time, but was blocked by a thick energy shield, and the fusion energy and spaceship energy were canceling each other out. "I want to see how many times you can block it." Kyle clenched his fists tightly, fused energy around the ends of his fists, and then swung his fists continuously, turning into beams of light cannons and bombarding the energy shield, causing the interstellar spaceship, which was thousands of times larger than his body, to shake violently. The energy mask of the starship is dimming at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it is about to collapse completely. "Commander, what should we do?" On the interstellar spacecraft, a group of Kree guards anxiously waited for the commander's reply. "What else can you do? Run away if you can." The commander smiled miserably, and stood alone in the command room. For the last time, tremblingly, he dialed the contact to Ronan, whom he had pledged allegiance to. After the connection was connected, Ronan on the screen asked directly, "How? Have you obtained the cosmic spirit orb?" "No, we failed." The commander shook his head and looked straight at Ronan. "Run away, it will be too late." Chapter 400 Ronan vs. Kyle. Boom. Carrying a brilliant punch of fusion energy and great strength, the energy shield of the spaceship with a slight arc in front of Kyle's eyes dimmed and disintegrated like fireworks, and the 5-meter-thick interstellar steel plate underneath also rumbled and shattered and collapsed inch by inch. Only the hole leading to the inner command room of the starship was exposed. Hula, all the oxygen in the command room was sucked away by the outer space, pulling many inner alien guards, and they flew out of the outer space screaming. Just exposed to the harsh environment of space, the body of the alien guard immediately froze, and the outer surface froze into white frost, becoming eternally floating space junk. Kyle slowed down his flying speed, flew in lightly, stepped on the deck inside the spaceship, waved back casually, fused the energy beam to melt the steel, and resealed the gap he opened. Kyle looked forward, and there was only one person left in the command room, wearing the uniform of a Carry officer. His skin was dark blue, and his face was painted like an Indian. "You should be the commander, right?" Kyle restrained infused energy, and when he looked at the other party, the commander also watched him closely. Commander Carey did not expect that it was such a human-like existence that forced hundreds of invincible interstellar ships to retreat. The commander changed his domineering attitude before, and lowered his posture and asked, "Your Excellency, I don't know how to address you," Kyle said bluntly. "My name is Kyle, a human from Earth." "Humans?" Commander Carey was slightly taken aback, as if he couldn't hold it any more. He laughed so hard that his tears were about to fall. "The Carey interstellar ship on the side of the Megatron Galactic Alliance is actually here today. Lost to a mere savage human, it's a surprise. There are several more like me." Kyle smiled faintly, walked forward slowly, and pulled out a creature card from his hand. Commander Carey laughed and said, "Don't think that if you kill me, you will win. Our combat race, the Kree, has survived dozens of interstellar battles in history, and is still the dominant civilization today. And your Earth has only just risen, ignited a trace of civilization, and it may be extinguished at any time, so what?" "Kneel down." Kyle raised the corner of his mouth, pressed his palms down, and pulled 10 times the position, prompting the opponent's knees to sink to the ground. Commander Carey roared as if death was at home, "Kill me. We Kree people will never give in. One day, the great and respected Ronin will avenge us." "Ronin?" Kyle smiled, and was about to make a move when Weiss suddenly sent back a message. "Boss, there's a voice connection here, and it is very likely that someone is listening to our conversation." The commander's face changed slightly, and at the same time, a hoarse voice sounded from the communication station. "Kyle, right? I think we need to have a good talk." "Ronin, don't worry, I'll go over and talk to you in person right away." Kyle raised his hand and blasted a beam of dazzling light, smashing the entire communication platform into dust, leaving only a dark hole in place. "Venom." Looking down at Commander Carey in front of him, Kyle materialized the biological card in his hand, and the moment the venom symbiotically entered his body, he immediately stretched out a black tentacle, quickly piercing into the commander's temple and reaching the brain memory organization. A few seconds later, the commander finished providing the last useful information. His brain shut down, and he fell straight to the ground. Venom finished sorting out the information, and said in Kyle's mind, "Boss, we have been deployed by the forces of the Nemesis Empire, and the location of the target Ronin." After hearing the information, Kyle transformed the venom into a card, continued to run the fusion energy, and his body rose in lingered circles of glare. With a kick of his feet, Kyle turned into a beam of light that pierced through the shell of the interstellar spaceship, ignored the scattered interstellar ships, and shot towards the civilized planet of the Kree Empire at the fastest speed, and turned into a faint star in an instant. Disappears. At this moment, in the center of the Kree Empire, in a huge dark ancient palace, the walls of the temple were lit with blue flame torches, and Ronin, the ruler of the civilization of the Empire, was sitting on the throne wearing a hooded cloak and holding a star hammer scepter. "They failed. How is this possible? Earth, human beings, wouldn't have something to do with that woman." Ronin's face sank like water, and even though he heard the worst news, he was still as calm as a ruler. "Have you come to find me? Then come." "I, Ronin, have never been afraid of anyone." Ronin seemed to know that even if he called his subordinates would be useless, so he didn't dispatch troops to escort him, and he didn't intend to run away at all. He just sat on the throne like this, tightly holding the star hammer scepter, quietly waiting for the time to pass by every minute and every second. After an unknown amount of time, the 10-meter-high palace door was suddenly pushed open, and a strong howling wind broke in, causing the blue flame and the torch on the wall to sway violently. Ronin looked up, and with a sound of footsteps, there was a figure approaching continuously, and when he approached the hall, the blue flame reflected the face of the intruder. The silver-haired, broken gold pupil, strong human male, is Kyle, who rushed all the way to the Nemesis at the speed of light. "Intruder, report your name." Ronin snorted coldly, and the star hammer hit the floor, causing the entire hall to tremble. Kyle smiled and said, "Don't you already know?" "Ronin, for some reason, I can only get rid of you first. Is it because of the cosmic spirit ball?" Ronin stared at Kyle with cold eyes, and slowly got up from his seat. He was tall even among the Kree people, and he was over 2 meters old. "The coercion of ancient beasts. There's a reason for that. The cosmic spirit orb is on me. Do you want it? Please, maybe I'll consider showing it to you." Kyle taunted wildly. "You saw the king of the Kree Empire broke into the Hall of Power. Why don't you kneel down and salute quickly?" "Maybe so, I will consider leaving your whole body, Ronan sneered again and again, grasping the Starhammer scepter with both hands. He shouted violently, as for the universe spirit ball, I will get it myself. As soon as the words fell, Ronan jumped up high. He was in the air, and the charged Starhammer was raised above his head. When it reached the highest point, as his body fell, the Starhammer also slammed towards Kyle's head below department. Clang, as if hitting a star. Ronan's pupils contracted violently. Kyle didn't see any movement. The end of the Starhammer was firmly held by the opponent's left hand. The turbulent air blown by the strong wind shook the silver banks. To blow a little mess. The king of the fighting race carry, that's all. Kyle looked at Ronan with a half smile. Ronan's eyes sharpened, and the temperature of the air in the hall suddenly dropped, and the Starhammer scepter burst into freezing cold air, instantly freezing Kyle's left hand and body together into ice blocks. The frost spread down to the floor of the hall and spread out, and the blue flames of the torches were all extinguished and dimmed. Few people know that Ronan, the master of carry, has the power of extremely cold ice. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.